Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 215th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussion. On today's episode, we have a brand new weapon coming from Kosmycpurge. This one is called Perma-Frost Punisher. And this is not, as I've been told, at all related to the Permafrost condition. So we are going to see a little bit of a different side from what Permafrost could do. So let's find out exactly what a weapon does. Let me bring up Kosmic here. Or Kosmyc Kage here. Back on. I'm muted. There we go. That's better. Got a little bit of glitching going on, but you're fine.
We're chilling. We're chilling.
There we are. I do like the void once in a while. I'm still digging doing the void every now and again.
Right?
Instead of, I mean,
See,
it is,
green
it's still
screen.
here, everybody. It's still there. It's not gone anywhere. It's just behind the void. It's fine.
So, I have a question.
The void just encompasses me. It's my blanket.
If I were to get a
sometimes the
green
void just gives me a nice big hug, right? It's like getting a big hug from the void.
Vortex.
What's up?
If I were to get a green screen, would it be you or I that would have to actually make the background black?
I'd do it.
You do it. Okay, so I
could easily, yeah.
The screen.
If you do a green screen, we could do a whole lot more because then it would just be our silhouettes. So we could resize. We could actually do a background again. Ooh, I could. So similar to our opening screen, I could try to find. Let's see, what do I have to change?
Oh, like little seats for us. Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
Like, yeah, if I could find a good image for us to actually have, that would be kind of dope to have in the background for us. But,
yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
yeah, I don't even think I have a background out right now. It's just black just because. But yeah, we could do some sort of a background.
Okay. That's good. Kosmic contributing to a community stream? A real OG. That's what's up.
What up? Thank you. Let's go. We got 2,000. How far are we along now? How far are we? I can't see it because my 8K out of the 15. Let's go. We are halfway there.
Yes. We're halfway there.
I am so bright. I have got to change.
Shine bright like a diamond.
I don't know what I'm doing right now. What am I looking for? Thumbnails. I'm looking for our main one. No, that's not it. It would be under. It's so difficult. I have so many things everywhere.
It's valid. It's very valid.
I have so much stuff. Where would I have put it now? Now no.
There it is. Okay, where's this guy? There he is. There he is. Play way too much peekaboo.
All right, I'm confused. I don't know. Nope, that's not the one. Where? Huh. I don't know where our main background image is now.
The one that we're using right now?
No, the one that is on the opening screen.
That's what I mean. Yeah. The one that... Yeah, that's weird.
I can't find it. Oh well. I know it's in one of my folders. It's just been a minute. Oh, there it is. That's right. That's right, because it's not an image. Duh.
What format is that?
It's what It is it's like a slideshow. So what is it?
Oh,
It's an MP4. So it's just a very, very short
MP4.
MP4.
Okay, legit.
That's
Legit.
that's why I couldn't find it. I don't need that. I need to configure my video. My right. Ooh, there we go. Okay. Now I'm just not like completely like blasted out. What's going on, Hoylepa? All right, cool.
Welcome,
So yeah,
welcome.
if you get a green screen, we can get a nice little background that would fit us. Like like a background that maybe looks like we're at a table, like at a tavern or something like that.
Got you.
We could have some fun with that. I think it would add. I think it would add to the overall aesthetic. I think it would be, pretty beneficial to do. So.
Okay. Not bad. Not
Do
bad.
that.
I'm here for it.
Yep. All right. Well, we're halfway to the March community stream, which is awesome. I might have an idea for a new option, so I will talk with you about that. But
Very cool.
there might be a new thing we can do for the community stream. So remind me to talk to you about that possibly on Wednesday.
Okay.
But either way, we have a review today. We have a new weapon to get through. And depending on how long this takes, I know sometimes weapons can take a long time, sometimes they don't. So we do have a backup just in case, because I know we talked about potentially doing more than one on Mondays now that you'll be more often remote. So let's see how long this one takes us. And if we can, we might get to a second one. Because I know everybody wants us to do more. So
more reviews.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. But I've also got to get back to my filters. Go boom. And boom. There we go. All right. So let me get this pulled up here. Excellent. Nope, that was perfect. Cool. All right. So let's find out exactly what we are going to be in for here. We have the Perma-Frost Punisher, a new melee variant type weapon. I'm not sure what the variant part means, but Kage, if you could fill me in.
Basically, whenever a weapon is described as a variant, basically a +1 weapon is a variant. You can have a +1 weapon of any type. So this is a very similar situation. It's of any type, but it's specifically melee weapon. So it can be any type of melee weapon, a dagger, a bow, or not a bow, like a quarterstaff, a longsword, whatever.
Are they trying to get away from just the concept of magical weapon? Are they trying to like divide the idea of magical weapon meaning +1 to magical meaning it has magical properties, whereas this just means it has the +1 to the effect?
Absolutely. So like in 5th edition, yes, a +1 weapon is a magical weapon, but there are plenty of weapons that are magical that don't have a +1. So because that's the case, magical is a much broader term than just being a +1 or not. And so that's why they have the distinction. Like, was it the Vorpal sword or something? Like there's another there's another weapon variant in 5th edition where it applies to all of the weapons. I can't remember what it is right now. It's something like you can't get crit on or something like, maybe it's an adamantium weapon. I think that's one too. Where I don't think innately it gives a +1, but it is magical and it could be of any weapon type.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it was one of those things we don't see that very often in the submission, so I wanted to make sure that I was understanding why that was there, because it's not something that I see often, but I don't go out and seek out a lot of Ivy content, so kind of makes sense. All right, so back to it. We have a Permafrost Punisher, the melee weapon from Kosmycpurge, and it is a variant type. So first off, let's look at some of the properties. It is a rare weapon. It does require attunement. I mean, we would not expect anything less from Sir Cosmic. But this one does use up 2 attunement slots. So that right there tells me I should be expecting a very heavy hitter. I want this thing to basically be an end-all be-all. I mean, if I'm taking 2 slots, are there any like known magical items that would require attunement for 2 slots? Like, is that even Because I'm trying to think of even like like well known by D&D lore at all. Like I don't even think
When I
I know
first
of any
saw
that would
that, I
take
thought the
2.
exact same thing. I was like, yo, this thing takes up 2 slots. I've never heard of that happening before, but I think it's a very interesting way to basically impose a cost on something that's very powerful. Because, like, there's artifacts that only take up one attunement slot, right? So if you're
Mhm.
taking up more than one attunement slot, especially if you're anything other than an artificer, because um, an artificer can is the only class that actually gets more attunement slots for what they are. I think similar to how fighters will get extra attack when they level up. At certain points, I think they get up to 2, maybe even 3 additional attunement slots into the standard 3.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's I really am liking this idea of taking up multiple tuning slots. I am hoping for I again I'm hoping that that's going to mean something pretty heavy, but it is giving me ideas. I really like the idea because now it's making me think of something along the lines that could shift its usage. So it taking up multiple attunement slots as being a single item, but because it takes up the multiple slots, has multiple effects you'd be able to select from.
Interesting.
I'm gonna have to think on
Interesting.
that. I'm
Okay.
gonna that's yeah, that's just something that I'm gonna have to think on there. But okay, so we have a 2 slot requirement for that. Ability modifier is strength. Damage die is a 1d6. That's a little surprising, but it's gonna hopefully it will be beefy in its effects. But I will say, yeah, was not expecting just a 1d6. Damage type, however, is bludgeoning or slashing. Now, what that makes me assume, and I'm just going to confirm with Cosmic out there, limiting the damage type to bludgeoning or slashing, I'm assuming also applies to the weapon. Meaning the
That is
idea
what
being
I
that it
was
has to
going to
be a
ask.
weapon
Yeah.
type that would normally do bludgeoning or slashing, not that
Slashing.
whatever weapon you want can only do these two. So I'm just trying to think of like in a sense of
The
lore
only
and in a sense of how
melee
a
weapon
DM
that
would
I can
use it.
think of, though, the only melee weapon I can think of, though, that uses piercing damage is the rapier. For the most part, with the exception of like spears and stuff like that. But I highly doubt
Hmm.
you'd find this in like a spear, because like a spear is like a thrown weapon, and like, well, I guess it could, because you can do it with a trident too. So like if this is your trident or something like that. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, it really only is ruling out piercing damage, but I was just trying to get across the idea of is this meant to help limit the type of weapon, or is there a reason why it doesn't do piercing?
that
What's I guess it's just yeah, what's the reason behind limiting it away from piercing damage? So well, piercing is for the weapon's other form, a bow. Gotcha. Okay, so 2 forms
other
that we'll see. The original form is bludgeoning or slashing, so it basically covers all melee. The piercing
okay,
is meant to
stand
be for a bow.
by. Is Cosmic, are we saying that the 2 pieces that were in there, because when I first looked at your submission, I don't think that was super clear that both of those things were a part of the same submission. Um, they look like 2 different items. So if those both are part of the same submission, um, that is not what I put here. So, because even in the wording, I didn't see anything that actually indicated there was an ability to shift forms. Um, I'll have to look at it again. I'll have to look at it. Hold on, let me pull it up here real quick.
Cosmic says they are the same item. It just takes an action to swap between them.
Okay, see, even that's not in here. Does it say that? It takes an action to swap between weapons? Because you have effects. Yeah, okay. So I'm working on it right now. We'll see. I might be able to get this to you guys real quick so we can take a gander at it.
I mean, worst case,
Almost done with it.
since we can't really swap places anymore, I have to actually take that. Well, I have to disable that when you're not in here. But if
Oh,
you can get
okay.
that at least, figured out, and so if we don't have a visual of it, we can at least have you read it off, and then still at
Okay,
least
valid.
discuss it and still be able to add it. So yeah, I'll continue, and then as you work on that, and if it doesn't get fully completed, we'll just let you narrate that part.
For sure.
All right, cool. So we have a melee weapon as its original state, which will do bludgeoning or slashing, covering all types of melee weapons. And then it will have a different variant, which is the bow, which is where we're going to get the piercing. So it is meant to cover all stages, which would be why we have 2 attunement slots, because it basically covers all types of weapons. So in its melee form, let's look at what the effects actually are. Excuse me. You gain resistance to cold damage while attuned to this weapon. I like that. Resistance to cold damage is totally fine. This weapon's magic permanently gives it the effect of the spell Elemental Weapon Cold. You also gain the following abilities. So Elemental Cold, really quickly. A non-magical weapon you touch becomes magical. So this one automatically is magical for those purposes. It is of the cold variety. For the duration, the weapon has a +1 attack bonus to rolls, and this one will deal an extra 1d4. Excellent. So this one's considered will do an extra 1d4, and then that's where we get the variant +1. I'm assuming that's how that reads.
Yes.
It also gets the following ability: Elemental Empowerment. When you roll initiative, you may reallocate 1, 2, or 3 of your weapon proficiency bonus to empower this weapon. This increases the elemental weapon effect as if upcasting the spell. However, when doing so, all other weapon bonuses you have proficiency in have their bonuses reduced by the same amount. This remains in effect until you are no longer in combat. Example, if your proficiency bonus is +3 and invest 2 points into the Perma-Frost Punisher, this weapon functions as if elemental cold or elemental weapon were upcast using a higher spell slot. While all other weapons you wield use a +1 proficiency bonus for the duration of combat.
So,
okay, I think I get what's happening there. Okay. So for every proficiency bonus you pump into it, it's like upcasting it by 1 slot, which would increase the damage output, which is totally fine.
Now, here's the... Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, what I was curious about is if the weapon is constantly under the effect of the spell, the very base form of the spell is a +1 with the 1d4. And in the example they gave, if you put 2 points into it, you get the second level version of the spell. So my question would be, does that mean in order, like every time you enter into combat, you have to put at least 1 into it in order to get any of these effects? That would be my question. You have to put at least 1 into it, or it doesn't get the +1, or it doesn't get the 1d4.
Because this one is a third, so technically it would have been, if you put 2 proficiencies, it'd be upcast to 5th level, not 2nd level. So that may just be a typo.
No, so I think the intent that Cosmic is trying to say is putting in 2, because I'll read you exactly what it says in the original, because I had to reword some of these just so that we could.
So Cosmic is answering your question, so this may do it. So you trade your proficiency bonus to make the elemental weapon effect stronger at the cost of making your other weapons weaker. Perma-Frost Punisher gets stronger, other weapons get weaker. So it is a +1 automatically. You can choose to invest more to make it stronger as combat goes on.
Okay, so the question is, what does more mean? Does more mean 1? So does that mean I'll make it stronger when I add 1 into it? Or like...
Yeah, because it says you may reallocate 1, 2, or 3. I would assume that with every 1, you upcast it by 1 spell level. So if it's a 3rd level spell, if you allocate 1, you go up to a 4th level. And then a 5th and a 6th.
This is a 3rd level spell. If you upcast it to a 4 or a 5, it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing to the spell.
Okay.
It's only when you cast it at 6th level do you get it increased. So you have to have a whole section of it in order to get the +2 and the like. So if you're reading the spell's description, it'll actually say when you
cast a spell using the 5th or 6th level, the bonus attack increases. So you have to upcast it to at least 5th or 6th, but 4th does nothing.
Right.
And
And
then when you go to
so
7th or higher, gotcha.
so it's 3 and 4 are a +1, 5 and 6 are a +2, 7 and 8 are a +3, and I don't think
Okay.
9 gives you a +4.
Okay, that makes sense. So with this one, what this is saying is that at its base, it's just going to do the normal +1, but you can allocate up to 3 of your weapon proficiency bonus points. So yeah, I guess the question is if I just give it 1, is that enough to push it to the 5th level slot? And is 2 a 6th
So
level slot?
let me read you his example in the document that he sent me. He said if your total proficiency is a +3, so your proficiency bonus to all your weapons that you get is a +3, and you use 2 of the proficiency points to make this weapon become that of an elemental weapon cold that is using using a higher spell slot of 5th or 6th level, that's what investing 2 points will do. Investing two
Gotcha.
points will make this act as a 5th or 6th level spell. um, all weapons in your person that has a plus, they'll only be able to add a +1 at that point, basically. So
Gotcha.
that would make sense. So if I'm putting 2 points into it, then I can now use the upgraded version, the +2 version. If I
Right.
put 3 points into it, I can use the +3 version. So that begs the question, how many points do I have to put into it to use the +1 version? It's either 0 or 1. So
I
if
think
it's
it's 0 because the baseline is already a +1.
so then the question would be, what would happen if at the beginning of combat I chose to only put 1? Because it says 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, so it does sound like this needs to be remathed because yeah, it is a little bit interesting that unless 1 goes to the 5 or 6, 2 goes to the 7 or 8. You know what I mean? Like it would have to be either way cheaper, which doesn't make much sense, or this should just be capped at like the 5, 6 level. Like you could use 2 proficiency points and you just have to hold on to the last one.
Again,
I'll say, oh, there's also a little bit more that I had to read, but I think we both now understand how this works, though, right?
right.
Do you know what the cap for proficiency bonus, like weapon proficiency bonuses, are throughout leveling?
So whenever it comes, it's just your whatever your proficiency bonus is at the time. So you can get a proficiency bonus as a player of up to 6.
Okay,
So
so this can go up to 6 points that you can spend.
I think
So
the weapon is saying you can only spend 1, 2, or 3 points. It's you can't spend 4, you can't spend 5,
okay,
and you can't spend 6. You can
yeah,
only spend 1, 2, or 3.
yeah, I'm not sure why you would. Yeah, so it really is interesting because if 3 already goes up to 7 or 8, yeah, why would you only use 1? But if it takes 2 to go up to the next level, you'd think it would be in pairs, which means you'd have to like use 3 to pre-charge it. So the next round you only use 1 to, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, the math is a little bit not clear. So I would just say that, yeah, make it better understandable why you would use 1 and how, make the example more like if you use 1, this is the effect. If you use 2, this is the effect. So the rest can be inferred. Because
Right.
right now, starting at the idea of 2 investment points, the inference is that there's no reason to do 1 and 3 is almost off, like 3 is almost like a guarantee. Like why wouldn't I do 3 if I have it? Because it's only 1 extra point to go that much higher. Um so there is that. So let me read the rest of this because I have another point I want to discuss. Also, when you roll max cold damage with an attack using this weapon. So when you roll your max damage, or I guess when you crit, I guess those would be both the opportunities. The target gains a permafrost stack, reducing their movement speed by 5. A creature can only bear as many permafrost stacks as their proficiency bonus before freezing solid. As the creature's proficiency bonus or as your proficiency bonus? I'm curious if
I
there's.
believe it's the way it reads is the creature's proficiency bonus. That's the
Gotcha.
way I
Okay. So
understand it.
creatures pay. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Cosmic. And permafrost stacks can only be removed by taking fire damage or by teleporting. Permafrost stacks resemble the target's body freezing solid bit by bit, starting at their feet, making it heavy and slow to slow their movement, like an ice version of petrification. Interesting. Okay, So I want to take a step back because one of my first, excuse me, one of my first initial reactions to this is while I like what we're trying to do with it, what is the likelihood that reducing my other weapons is really going to be what you would consider a true trade-off? Does that make sense?
Especially with the addition of the information that Cosmic just gave me that this bow is its other form, and I can use ranged weapons and melee weapons with this one weapon. The question would be, why would I ever touch another weapon while I'm in combat?
Well, and
What
I'll even go one further. How often do, other than say someone who deals in dual wielding or with something like thrown weapons like daggers, outside of that, how often do players really ever have more than one main weapon outside of, again, a side weapon that's used not necessarily for combat, but for those rare moments?
the only
I'm just
exception
thinking,
is going to be the monk, who has the ability to use a weapon for their main attacks, but their flurry of blows must be unarmed strikes. So I use whatever bow staff or nunchucks or whatever weapon I have in my hand for my main attacks, but every time I want to do flurry of blows, I'm having to do unarmed strikes, whether they're punches or
yeah,
kicks or whatever. So that would be the only time where all of my unarmed strikes would have a detriment to this weapon, right? And
mhm,
again, depending if you found like a quarterstaff or if you found, any other weapon type, maybe it was a katana or something like that. And so the monk is like really excited to use this and they're willing to sacrifice their unarmed strikes, you know, potency for this. Like that's fine. But the other thing is specifically because it says your proficiency bonus, the thing that adds to your damage is your ability modifier, not your proficiency bonus. Both your proficiency bonus and your ability modifier combined is what adds to your attack whenever I'm rolling to hit. But because it's just the ability modifier, I'm assuming that this detriment is not going to be to the other weapon's damage. It's only going to be to the other weapon's to hit possibility, right?
yeah,
And if
and
it's
and
only
so
decreasing it by one or two,
So Cosmic is saying that for the purpose was for the cases of like being disarmed or if you enter an anti-magic field, um, or otherwise if your magic is shut off, then you might want to switch to a different weapon. Those are very valid, but those are extremely situational to for me to consider justifying a whole detriment off of those situations. So my suggestion, because I do like the idea that this thing should come at a cost, I personally just don't think this is
agree.
enough.
Sure.
I would be fine because it takes 2 attunement points. I would absolutely be fine with the verbiage saying, while you're attuned to this weapon, all other weapons are you are considered. I don't know what the term would be, but basically, like you were not considered proficient in any other weapon, meaning anytime you pick up anything that's not this weapon, you are
Oh,
basically
absolutely.
considered untrained, or what would be the equivalent? Like what would be if
I
you pick up a
I
weapon that you
think
can't? What's usually the detriment, right? Like if you are only good at
so. The
martial
detriment
weapons, you
is you don't get to add your proficiency bonus to the weapon's attack roll. So say if I have
okay,
a 6 or a 5 proficiency bonus, normally it'd be my proficiency bonus plus my dexterity modifier, let's say, and then I roll the dice. So this
okay.
time it'd
So
be just my dexterity modifier.
I would then add for this, while attuned to this weapon, you cannot be considered proficient in any other weapon. So basically, just what you just said, and all attacks with other weapons are made at disadvantage. That would be enough. That would be enough of a detriment to be if I'm disarmed or in an anti magic field, like Cosmic said, if there's any situation, that would make it hurt. But to be honest, only getting rid of 2 of my proficiency bonuses doesn't matter. It does not hurt at all. I
Sure.
really do think that it deserves to have a little bit more. So I'm fine
So
getting rid of the
then
entire proficiency bonus and inflicting disadvantage with any other weapon.
So the question then would be, what would be the point in them not choosing the +3 every time? Or would you just say this weapon now is the +3 version, or is the 8th level version of this spell?
So that's where I think there should be more of a like because it doesn't say like you get these back, right? I would say like you can only spend these points like once per long rest. So it's like you could get a +3 right out the gate, but then for the rest of the day you can't. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, so you
this should
have as
actually
many
cost an
points as
economy.
so you have as many points as your proficiency modifier, and you spend those points throughout the day,
Yeah.
depending upon how much you need it. So at
That's
10th
why spending
level,
all three matters, that you get that +3,
that's
you
actually
get the
very
best
interesting.
yeah, you
Yeah,
would
yeah,
get the
yeah.
best version of the weapon at the cost of it better be this is the last time today you
Interesting.
need it. Otherwise, there's a better reason to only spend 1 point. So yeah, I think that would narratively be better, that when you attune to this weapon, basically it's like it tells you don't ever touch another weapon. I will curse you basically if you touch another weapon. But as long as you use me, you get all these awesome bonuses. And yeah, I think that you should basically have a expenditure per long rest. Because something this big, right? You have a rare attunable item that takes two attunement slots. I think that there should be a little bit more investment. You know what I mean?
And I will say, for me, the two attunement slots makes a little bit more sense, understanding that this weapon has two forms, right? So,
Yes,
like, theoretically, a
100%.
form for each weapon. Like, that's cool. Like, I'm super down for that, and it's super powerful, and it's basically the last weapon you'll ever need to touch type deal. So, but
And
I
that's why
agree.
I
If
don't
you're gonna,
that's why I wouldn't mind like it being, one of the or one of the slots for fifth level. Um well, I guess fifth and sixth is the same. You said seventh and eighth are the same. So I would say, yeah, I would. I don't even know how to. I mean, you could even just say like, I know, I don't, well, no, because do it. Referencing the upcast is the best way to do it. Like, it's the smoothest way to do it. The problem is the upcast only has, you know, really two upgrades, right, outside of a ninth level.
sure, sure.
So
So you got your base level and then two more. So, and I think so. I think if there is a detriment, like that you were going to impose and like increase per level, I think you should have that detriment universally when you hold this weapon.
mm,
Right? So yes, all your other weapons and all that stuff, but that if we're gonna tie something to increasing this and increase the detriment as you increase it, I think that you should start off with the minimum version of that detriment all the time in order to get the base level version of that spell.
yeah.
And then just upgrade once or twice to get the max level, the third level version of it.
All right. So cool. So I think, yeah, I think we're on the same page on that one, because I would like this just to cost a little bit more, but I think it's on the right path, definitely. Also going down to the permafrost stack. So permafrost stack reduces their movement by 5 feet. Um, and if they get as many stacks as their proficiency bonus, they will freeze solid. Now, I'm curious, if is there a so when we say freeze solid, does that just mean that their movement is 0? Are they considered dead? Are they considered
That
restrained? Are they
is a
considered
good
paralyzed?
question. I'm
I would
assuming
just
this
think
is
that there
to
should be a
mirror
little.
petrification. I'm
Okay, and
assuming
and I would
this is
just
to
say,
mirror
yeah.
petrification.
Oh yeah, permafrost stacks. Oh yeah, there we are. I think we read that before. Making it heavy enough to slow, like ice version of petrification. Okay, so it's supposed to work like petrification. So what happens when you become fully petrified? What is the actual effect once that's on?
Your weight increases by a factor of 10, and you cease aging. You are incapacitated, can't move, speak, and unaware of your surroundings. Attack roll against you have advantage. You automatically fail strength and dexterity saving throws. You have resistance to all damage. You are immune to poison and disease, though a poison or disease already in your system is only suspended, not neutralized.
Hmm.
Interesting. First of all, it doesn't even say anything about your speed being zero. Oh, it says you're incapacitated, so I guess that counts.
Right. What would be really fascinating for this? I mean, it, I think this would only work for something like High Point. I don't know how well this would work for fifth edition, but I would love it if this also said that a creature that has a max stack of permafrost becomes immune to cold damage.
Is do you really stop aging when you're petrified?
Yeah.
So crazy.
Because that's why you can do that. That's why DMs can do the bit where you can cast like dispel magic and a statue could come alive and basically say that they've been sitting there for 100 years because they just stopped aging.
Yeah. That's crazy. And I guess it would kind of make sense because Avatar, Captain America, they all got frozen in ice and just thawed and they were Gucci when they popped out.
So yeah, I like the permafrost stacks. I like that it doesn't like actually kill them, but basically incapacitates them, takes them out of the fight.
So
I don't mind any of that, and fire is the only thing that can undo it. I kind of dig that.
Here's my question. So they said that the weapon's damage die is a 1d6.
Correct.
Do I need to roll max on the 1d6 or the 1d6 and the 1d4 or potentially 3d4? Do I need to roll max on every single one of those dice? Because
it says when you roll max cold. Well, it says when you roll max cold damage. So remember that would be the 1d4.
That's just the d4.
Correct.
So if just the d4 needs to max, that's anytime I roll a 4 on my cold damage, I'm giving you stacks. Right? Now, when it comes to the other ones, yes, it's 2d4, which means it's less likely to proc. 3d4, it's less likely to proc. You're doing more damage, but you're less likely to proc that. So that could be an advantage of using the base version. Is you're way more likely to proc your now, to be very honest, because the permafrost is so powerful, it might be worth almost never using that.
Oh, I got it. I got an idea. You know how you asked why, based on this math, why would you ever use one? Why would you ever use one bonus point?
Sure.
What if the first bonus point guarantees a stack on hit? Then the second upgrades it to the 5/6. The third upgrades it to the 7/8. So we still get the 2 upscales, just as in the spell. We don't have to go beyond the 2 upscales, but that solves our problem. Why would you only ever use one, especially if the action economy only ever resets daily? If you use 2 and upscale it, you get the guaranteed stack as well, right? Like, just the idea of why would you only use one is that first one is meant to basically proc like the guaranteed permafrost. So that could be the verbiage we need to justify why you'd only use one bonus point, because you're guaranteed to permafrost them. Because what if they have one stack left? What if you just need them to have the stack to incapacitate them? You could just be like, hey, I'm going to burn my last bonus point, and boom, I'm going to stack them. So there's a chance that may fix the verbiage and the math.
You can use your points to auto stack. Is that what you're saying?
That's my point. Like, yeah, because remember you said like if you use 2, you upgrade it to the 5/6, and if you use 3, you upgrade it to the 7 up stack or the upscale, or sorry, the upcast. There we go. Right. So if I use 2 bonus points, I upcast it to the 5th, 6th level. If I use 3, I upcast it to the 7th, 8th. If I only cast 1, I'm going to auto permafrost stack them if I hit. So instead of having to roll max, it just means I'm guaranteed to proc. So that's the reason why the math would work out, is we still get the 2 upcasts, but the first one should be a guaranteed proc. Because then when you have like a boss that has almost all their stacks, you could just burn these instead of trying to do more damage. You could just burn these to incapacitate them.
So when you say burn these, are you talking about burning your proficiency points?
Yeah, if we were to take the example that we said where they reset every long rest, and then if you could use 1 to guarantee a permafrost stack, or use 2 to upcast, or use 3 to upcast further.
So when you're saying that, like, I'm assuming you're talking about when initiative is rolled at the beginning of combat, not when you go to actually strike somebody. But what it sounds like you're saying is if I'm going to just burn one real quick, that sounds like I'm doing it in the middle of combat when I'm about to hit somebody. So is the idea that when I hit, I can choose to burn an extra proficiency bonus, an extra proficiency point to automatically, or that's what you're saying is like when I burn only one, the effect that it has is every time I hit,
Yes.
it's still the
That's
same effect. It's
that.
just that
Yes,
okay,
because we're talking about
okay.
the initiative. I guess I didn't really like clarify because we're talking about the fact that this happens at initiative. I realized after you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the part that we didn't say again is this is all at initiative because yeah, when you burn the 2 or 3, you're upcasting it. But why would you burn one? But if you could burn one and every time on hit during that combat, you would guaranteed stack. That could
So
be of more advantageous than just doing
here's
more
what I'll say.
damage.
Here's what I'll say. That's so much more advantageous. I would almost never use 2 or 3.
So it would have to be more like you'd have to do double their proficiency,
Like,
or
like
that you'd have to do equal to your proficiency bonus. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to do
I
a.
would
You'd say it would be
say
hard. You'd have to make it harder to actually fully incapacitate them.
yes. Like I was thinking you were talking about like actively in combat burning an entire point to guarantee doing stacks.
I don't mind that either. I kind of like. I definitely would prefer that over it because I'm just looking at the idea of like a 1d4. There's a good chance you're going to proc that a lot, but not all the time. So I was just looking at it from
Sure.
the point of view of what would be the difference between procking it out of 1d4 versus all the time because
Because
it goes from a
here's the thing.
25% chance to 100. But I see what you mean is if it only I don't know how many proficiency points most creatures have. So I guess that would also be the thing. If most of them only have 4, yeah, it only takes you 4 hits and they're incapacitated. That could be broken. That could be very broken.
So so I think to make it feel like I can use this more often, I think it should read because again, anytime I level it up, it makes it harder for me to proc this, which sucks. Which sucks. It means every time I level up, it's less likely that I'm going to be able to use one of the best features of this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what would be cool is if it said whenever you roll max damage on any one of your cold damage dice, on any
Yep,
one of my
I
cold
like that.
damage dice, then it procs the permafrosted condition. Because then it'll proc just as often, right? Or
Mm,
when you get higher up, it'll proc more often. You'll get
true.
at least one of the
You'll
three
get you'll get more
procs more
chances to have it
often.
proc. Actually, that makes more
So
sense. Yeah, the more that would
if
make it more likely for you to want to upcast it because you'll have more chances to do the stack.
yes, yes, and you'll still feel like the more you do, the more powerful you'll feel, right? So like, and again, when you're dealing with like little minions, like you're not worried about permafrosting all of them. Like I know I can kill you guys, I'm not trying to, but if you're dealing with like a crazy beefy dude or something like that, yeah, I want more
Okay,
chances
so
to
how
proc
about
that
this then?
shit.
Okay, so going off of that idea, if it read when you roll initiative, you can allocate 2 or 3 to upcast your weapon to 5th, 6th, or 7th, respectively, right?
Mhm.
Blah 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 blah, and everything else happens. I also agree. Add the language. If any of your cold damage die roll max, you proc. I like that too. But what if it also added if you choose not to roll during initiative before attacking a creature, you may use a proficiency point to guarantee a stack if you hit your next size. So you have to burn it first.
I'll say,
You have
I'll
to actually
say,
use it, but it's before you know if you hit.
I'll say, I would be cool if, and tell me what you think about this. Kind of similar to what you were talking about earlier. When I'm using the 1 point, like why would you ever use it if it automatically has it? When using the 1 point, um, I would say you can guarantee once per turn a proc of of what is it called?
The
Permafrost.
permafrost
You can
stack.
guarantee a stack once per turn. So instead of guaranteeing it like every hit, when a fighter I got 5 hits, I can permafrost you fully in one
Hmm.
round, right? Especially if I action surge. Once per turn, I get a guaranteed one. And then after that, any other procs that I get have to be natural. right? So you'll get an advantage. You'll get something for for choosing just one. So at the
Okay.
beginning of combat, when I roll initiative, you're
I
choosing
don't
one, two, or three. Period.
I don't mind that. I kind of like that idea. That's kind of cool that I can just guarantee it, especially after like. And then if you add the language, you can choose this after you roll. So like if you roll and realize you didn't proc it, then you can be like, okay, I want to do this one. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't mind
Oh,
making
right,
it
right.
like that beneficial. I also think if you wanted, if like Cosmic wanted it to be a little bit more powerful, because again, I really do like the idea of making this thing beefy for what you have to give up for it, which is those 2 slots. What if when you choose to do the one, instead of guaranteeing a proc, what if the verbiage says you can add a stack to any attack? So let's say I attack, I roll, I get a stack, but because I did the original roll with the one at the initiative, I can just say this particular round I'm going to also add a stack. So this particular round I'm going to have 2. Or on a round you don't stack, you can add 1 and guarantee it, right? So kind of like what you were saying, it's guaranteeing a stack, but it's technically an additive. So even if you already got a stack that round, they're going to get 2 that round, right? So that could be make it a little bit more powerful because it's like a one-time.
Kind of like a smite thing that you get to add on.
Yeah. So basically, if you only burn 1 bonus point at the beginning of initiative, once per combat, once in the combat, you can add an additional stack or just add a stack to your attack. So whether or not your attack got its own stack doesn't matter. You're just going to add a stack with that attack
I
period.
would say I'd be cool with that once per turn. Like,
Oh, once per turn. Oh shit. I was just thinking like once per combat because basically it's like what you were saying. You can guarantee it at least once, but this
yeah,
also means that you can do it on top of another one.
but that's what I mean. Like, what I was saying is I was talking about once per turn. I was thinking that like sneak attack for a rogue, right? You get that
Okay.
once per turn. Even if you have multi attack, you get that once per
Gotcha.
turn. You
You're
can
just thinking. You're
sneak
just thinking
attack
at
again.
once per any one of their attacks in their turn. Okay,
Yes,
I'm
once
okay with
per
that
any
too.
one
Yeah.
of their multiple attacks, you can guarantee getting a permafrost stack on this particular one, right? I do like the idea of like triggering it like a smite. Like if you're not worried about it, like whatever. If you're specifically trying not to permafrost them, that's cool too.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I do like the idea of having that choice later down because yeah, that any of those are good options. I think just to make using 1 bonus point worth it. You know what I mean? I think that's just the hardest part is what's that 1 point going to be used for. Also, before we move on, Cosmic had posted that if you also are fully ice petrified and you get hit with a shatter spell, you are treated as an object, such as a statue, rather than a creature. I don't know if that's part of petrification, but fascinating.
that's
I
part
I do
of
kind of dig it.
Shatter. Let me
Oh,
actually
so
look at
shatter says it can target petrified creatures.
it. Not exactly a T. There we
Because
go.
I 100% like
Um,
think that makes a lot of sense actually.
a non-magical object that isn't being worn or carried also takes the damage if it's in the spell's area. So it's like a non-magical object that it would just take the spell's damage. Now I don't know if it means it takes max damage.
Yeah.
It says a creature made of inorganic material such as stone, crystal, or metal has disadvantage on this saving throw. So,
But Cosmic is saying
uh,
that in this particular case, it for their ice petrification, if they have all their stacks, they are treated as an object, not a creature.
okay.
So that means
I
that
would
you could
I would
basically
I would add non-magical object because this spell does specify non-magical. So if they're a theoretically a magical creature, oh well, I'm a magical object even though I'm an object.
right. No,
If
that
you
makes
want
sense.
them to, if you want them to essentially be affected by the spell, which is basically just saying you don't get to roll a saving throw, you just get
Right.
hit, you just take the damage. Um, then yeah, I would add that for sure.
All right. Yeah. So I kind of like that though. I dig the idea that if you're fully petrified, having shatter used against you, it does make a whole lot of sense to me actually. It's OP, but it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
All right, and the last part to the melee version is that when cast, I'm assuming that this is supposed to be that when it's cast using a higher spell slot, the following the spell's normal scaling, any proficiency points invested in this way are subtracted from your proficiency points with all other weapons. So if you use more, all of them drop substantially. This redistribution lasts until you're no longer in combat. So, for example, if your proficiency bonus is a +3 and invest 2 points in the Perma-Frost Punisher, this weapon functions as if it were at a higher spell slot, while other weapons use a +1. So we saw the same ones.
Yeah.
Okay. So overall, so I do like the idea. I like the idea of a weapon taking 2 spell slots. I like the idea of the elemental aspects of it. I like the idea of finally seeing something that's not tied to just proficiency bonus or well, I guess so weapon proficiency bonus is just your proficiency bonus, right?
Yes,
It's just when you're using it
it's
for the
just
purposes of a weapon.
yes, it's just when it's not like your proficiency bonus anytime you roll like a regular skill check because you use your proficiency
Yeah.
bonus for that. It's only for other weapons.
So I do like that. I like the aspect of using that. I definitely think that there should be more. I mean, I think that the economy should be more than just through combat that we've seen here, because the idea that I mean, I like that, when you upcast it, but it's like the redistribution lasts until you're no longer in combat, which is just the redistribution for the proficiency points. But I really think that the verbiage should make it to where it's like a long rest, where again, you can once you've used these points, you just don't immediately get them back. I think that would make it a little bit more tactical, especially for those games that have multiple combats between rests. So, if you have 6 proficiency points, using 3 of them in 2 combats is a much different game than using, or I mean, 3 in 2 different combats versus 2 in 3 different combats, right?
Right.
Um, so I think that there's some value there. I would like to see a little bit of action economy. I love the stack idea. I think it works very well. I would like to see some that the stack get incorporated a little bit more with the elemental empowerment, especially in a way that we were talking about, like incorporating it with the use of the actual 1 proficiency bonus, because that would be kind of nice to do that. The other option as well, even though we didn't see it in here, is that it's supposed to take an action to change the weapon. Um, I don't know. It wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. I kind of like the action more for changing the weapon, but you could also say that when you roll initiative, you can allocate 1 point to change the weapon type instead of doing an action mid combat. But that would severely reduce its functionality, and I don't necessarily think that's the right move. But it is an
Sure.
option. But with that, do we have something that we can use, or do you want to go ahead and read off the second version?
I'm gonna send you this. Upload. Where are you? It goes. And the biggest thing that tripped me out was it had a fully different name than the other one. I thought if it was the Permafrost Punisher, it's this one weapon, it changes forms. I would think it would have the same name, but um uh here wait, where'd it go? There it is, Echoes. And let me grab the link and where are you at? There you are. Boom. All right, you should have the link for that guy.
Getting it right now.
And so the line that you just said, I put at the end of this document because I finally found where Cosmic put it. He actually put it as one of the abilities in the other one, which is why I didn't actually see swapping from the melee to the ranged version. But
Gotcha.
should all be
All right.
there.
Well, just imagine that we're at the bottom of the last page where it says, as an action, you can swap this weapon between its melee and ranged forms. Any bonuses applied to the weapon persist between forms. I don't mind that at all. I think if you've already made the effect, I do kind of like that it will take that effect ongoing.
Agreed.
I don't know what happened to the music. Again, music just keeps shutting off every now and again. But all right, so let's take a look at what the ranged side does. When you change it, you get Echoes of the Extinct. Interesting that it changes, or was it always Echoes of the Extinct? No.
No, that's what this weapon is called.
Okay, so it goes from Perma-Frost Punisher to Echoes of the Extinct. Okay, that definitely is not something that I would expect. Normally, if a weapon changes form, they don't usually change names. So I absolutely understand why that would be confusing. I'm not sure. Yeah, I definitely a creative choice I wouldn't have made, because that does beg to differ. Are you using two different weapons or not? But the short bow version is called Echoes of the Extinct. This one has an ability modifier of dexterity with a 1d6 damage. This one's piercing, and it has a range of 80, 320. It's a hell of a range. Description.
I think that's longbow range.
Oh, yeah. So description. Each glacial arrow is composed of 1 million compressed snowflakes. I feel like that would be very small. Like, snowflakes are tiny. Million snowflakes. A manifestation of the souls of an extinct species from a forgotten ice age millennia past. For reasons unknown, the unnatural sharpness of these arrows allows them to ignore cold resistance in their targets. Okay, I don't mind that. That's a good way to start it out. Let's see. So the effect. This weapon requires no ammunition and ignores the target's cold resistance. I like the no ammunition. But most magical weapons, I'm always down for not having ammunition.
Absolutely.
Unless it's going to imbue, unless the lowers that it imbues the shot. Yeah. When you draw the string, it conjures a glacial arrow. These arrows have the following effects. Each glacial arrow is treated as an arrow affected by elemental weapon, which would make sense if you've already upcast it. That means that you'd probably already be at the upcasted version of those arrows.
Well, it would honestly be any version of it, right? Even the base version, if you started off with this weapon.
Well, yeah, but I'm just meaning if you have the melee weapon, upcast the melee weapon, and then switched, the arrows would now be those versions.
Absolutely.
Upcast for. Then on hit, the arrow deals 1d6 piercing damage plus your dexterity modifier plus 1d4 cold damage, which scales to the 2d4, 3d4 as upcast.
So I'm actually curious. Cosmic is specifically mentioning that this one adds your dexterity modifier, but on the other one, he doesn't specifically add that. So my question would be, was the intent that the melee weapon does not add strength modifier when we're doing it? Like, it does say it's strength based, but it doesn't say it like specifically in the weapon's damage. It's like, it's not saying, hey, you're going to do this much damage, or you're going to add your strength modifier to the damage. I just noticed that, and I wasn't sure if that was intentional or not.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. Let us know, Cosmic. Is the melee supposed to have the strength modifier, or is it intentional to promote it only in range? It does, but it felt redundant saying the same line for every weapon type. Okay.
Fair enough.
So it is supposed to be the 1d6 plus strength modifier plus the 1d4 on the melee side.
Okay.
Totally fine. Okay, and then as a bonus action, you can cast Ray of Frost. When cast in this way, only one beam is fired. The spell's range becomes 8320, matching the bow's normal long range. So you basically get to cast that spell at range. Which now suddenly, holy shit, why can't we have like even just a hand crossbow that is a magical focus?
So I got real confused for a hot second because I thought that the Ray of Frost only ever fired one beam. And I am right. So Ray of Frost, just in general, only ever fires one beam. I'm curious that Cosmic, please clarify for me, but does Ray of Frost level up with you. Meaning, because Ray of Frost is a cantrip, when you reach level 5, you get to hit with 2d8. When you hit level 3, you got 3d8, and when you hit level 7 or level 3, level 11, you get 3d8, and level 17, you get 48. So I'm curious if this version of Ray of Frost does the same, or if this is just base level Ray of Frost with just 1d8. It does, but if okay.
I still want. I really would like a bow that is a like arcane focus that lets you do that. Like lets you like X times per day.
Yes.
Lets you fire a spell at range of whatever it is.
Honestly,
That'd be kind of like honestly that would
crazy
help.
about this is that it's a bonus action, which means I can attack however many times I attack, and then as a bonus action, throw out a cantrip.
Yeah.
And if that cantrip does scale with you, and that's the like your bonus action will be doing like twice as much damage as your main action.
It does scale with you.
That's crazy.
And then on top of that, if you upcast the arrow,
that's crazy. That's crazy. You oh, hold on. Okay. Question. Because it's coming from this weapon. Okay, it does say max damage, so if it is 4d8, all 4d8 would have to roll max damage. But my question would be, can this bonus action rock Permafrosted Condition?
oh, that the stack, yeah, the permafrost stack. So, because
Yes.
can Ray of Frost stack with permafrost? That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting that it's that powerful. I would maybe limit it to the number of times, like everything else, number of times per proficiency bonus or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
The bonus
that
action?
is that's crazy that your bonus action becomes that much more powerful than your main weapon. Because then, because also there's nothing on the melee side that even comes close to that. Like at that stage, the melee weapon is you are now an archer. Like at this stage, the only benefit that you can go melee is if someone closes difference and you get caught. But even then, like I'm gonna immediately try to do the bow as soon as I can.
That's right. I fully forgot. Ray of Frost also reduces your opponent's movement speed by 10 feet. So if you get 2 stacks, or if you get 3 or 4 stacks of permafrost on them, that reduces their movement by 20 feet, and then you hit them with a Ray of Frost, then that removes about you basically stopping this person in their tracks before they're even frozen solid.
That does make the bow side. And again, you're supposed to be at range, so if you can stop them from closing distance, like why would this definitely seems more like a bow. Maybe we should have read the bow first, because it definitely seems like this is primarily a bow. And actually, you know what? That actually makes sense, because if you think about, listen to the Echoes of the Extinct, right? I don't really understand that naming structure, mainly because I guess that it's supposed to tie into the snowflake part. But if you think about it, you're firing the bow, you're inflicting a bunch of cold damage, and you're getting them their permafrosted conditions. So if they're stacked with permafrost, then you run up to them, change your weapon to the Perma-Frost Punisher, and then you finish the job. So it almost sounds like that's the orders. It's meant to primarily be a bow, and it turns into a melee kind of as an afterthought, like as a alternative.
Because if they get up in your face and you want to do some melee,
or you want to finish him off, you've basically petrified him in ice, and then you want to walk up and bash him in the face. Kind of like I feel like the melee doesn't stand up to it. The fact that the other one can do the cantrip, if the melee was able to do something similar, or able to, again, if it was able to proc like permafrost easy or something, but yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the bow is definitely the one that you would want.
and I would say it would make.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that teleporter is a good counter maneuver for this. Like, yes, things can teleport, but I wouldn't necessarily say that being able to teleport to reduce the permafrost condition or to remove those stacks. Like I don't know if that's a valid like
Are
tactic
we
to
saying that
consider.
a single teleport removes
It just says
all
permafrost stacks can
stacks?
only be removed by taking fire damage or by teleporting. But when I read stacks, I don't hear all. I hear like one like every time you get one removed. But Cosmic, let us know if that's if how the language should read. Is it any attack of fire or teleporting removes all stacks, or only one stack per instance? Because that definitely will change everything.
Hmm. Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely pretty interesting. Like I I love this cold weapon. I love that it, it almost radiates this just like essence of cold. Everything it touches, everything around it is just um the stacks don't go with
Okay,
them.
so teleport. Okay, that's interesting. So teleport removes all stacks. Fire removes one stack per instance of damage. So I definitely think that needs to be fixed. Like that language is not clear. Um,
Yeah.
but I would definitely. I. It's interesting because I don't know if I understand the lore behind that. Because if they are the ones freezing and they teleport, why is like,
So
like unless it's just like an
I
encasement of ice, right? Like if they're being encased in ice, that makes more sense.
that's kind of how I see it, and the fire damage is slowly melting it away. I would say if that's the case, I would say per 10 points of fire damage rather than every instance. Because if I do 50 points of fire damage and I only remove one stack for that, like
Versus if I can
that's
just like stab myself with my torch and do 1d4 and remove the
sure,
same
sure,
stack.
sure.
Because you
Right,
could
right,
technically just
exactly.
say, hey, I just grabbed my torch. That's a d4 of fire damage, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
So yeah, there's got to be some sort of better math there and just a better language on how that works. Um, I would also say that if teleporting removes it all, I would also slightly just change. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just up to the DM to decide how it's supposed to look. But yeah, I would say that makes that sound more like you're being encased in ice rather than you are actually like freezing
You're
yourself.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Freezing due to your temperature or something like that.
yeah. So with the teleporting thing, it does help, but yeah, I don't know if it's a big enough. I don't want to call it a debuff, but I don't think it's a big enough counter. I don't think teleporting itself is
Eh,
justifiably the
Yeah.
biggest counter.
Unless you
Um,
live in a world where like so many people have the ability to teleport like that, then
yeah, in the vast majority of fights, this thing is going to be extremely difficult to counter or to fight against. But I'm also just trying to understand, like, if it was 100% meant to be the bow, and like if the lore was this is supposed to be a bow, and the melee side is just there for backup or for taking the final blow, I'm totally fine with that.
you know what? That
Oh,
would actually be an
oh,
interesting addition to the
I
lore
I was
because
just
it
I hope you're about to say what
specifically
I was thinking.
it
I hope you're about to
specifically
say what I'm about to
states
say.
a short bow when it comes to this one, but the other one's a variant. So what if
Yeah,
because you can change it into any weapon you want it to. So you could change it to a hammer or a long
I
sword
think that's the
or
idea. Like, I
a
think that was the
staff or
whole
something.
point is whatever you wanted it to be.
So I initially thought that, but then it didn't it didn't sound like there was any ability that allowed you to change it, which is why I didn't include that. Otherwise, I definitely would have made that a little bit more clear when creating
I think because I think that's
creating
why because I think Cosmic said it in chat actually. Um,
it.
uh, let's see. You can where was it? Yes, so the Cosmic said it can be any melee weapon in chat. So it was intended to be this can take the form of any melee weapon. I'm assuming that's
That
when you change it. It
see
because that's why it covers bludgeoning and slashing.
see
Because it basically
that's confusing to me because again, piercing exists for melee weapons, so why couldn't it be piercing as well? Also, what type of ability do you have to change it? Like it should say something at least like what it says at the bottom of the other one, saying like you can use an action to change its form from one to the other. But
Yeah.
if
And so I don't know if that means that upon attunement you have to select one weapon type, or if every time you change from range to melee, right? Because that could be a cool limitation. You can only change the weapon type when changing to melee. That would be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind it, right? One thing I was thinking too is if we wanted to make a little bit different focus on the melee side, like make it a little bit more impactful and something that would make the bow maybe less extreme, because it is really fucking extreme. Um, what if the bow did everything as is because it was the way to inflict the permafrost condition, right? The stacks. But what if we said that once a creature is permafrosted or has all of their stacks, the bow can no longer do damage to them? Meaning, once you've fully incapacitated someone, the only way to finish them off for you is to change into the melee weapon close distance and finish them off. But if in that time they come out of it, now you have to break distance to get your bow back. So that could be another alternative, is to make the reason for wanting to use melee. Because right now, unless the creature is able to close distance, I don't know why I would ever go melee. But if it's once I've fully frozen them, I can't hurt them anymore. Maybe there's a reason why I would again change the hammer to go, basically, break them apart.
So question for me is, you are incapacitated, can't move or speak, and are unaware of your surroundings. Now, let me check incapacitated, but you cannot take actions or reactions. Now, what's weird about that is you can take bonus actions, which why would I be able to take bonus actions?
I mean, rules it's written, I could take bonus actions, but wait, are there any bonus actions that would like benefit them to counter the effects? Like, is there a way that a bonus action could counter what's happening? So maybe that's
spell. It's a spell, but again, like in
like what about another cantrip? Is there any type of cantrip that's a bonus action that might benefit you in this situation?
In this situation or in the incapacitated situation?
The incapacitated. I'm just trying to think of like, if you could do a bonus action, is there a cantrip that would benefit being incapacitated? Because there's got to be a reason why you can do a bonus action. It's got to be something that allows you to negate it.
The only thing that could benefit you is something that would increase your ability to roll a saving throw if it's something that save ends, or if you had something that removed the specific condition that you were under. That's really the only thing that's gonna. Other than that, you're just there. And so the reason why I bring any of that up is because when you're in here, you can't see or move or speak or anything, and you're unaware of your surroundings. And if all of that is still the case, how can you teleport? Because most teleporting things says you to a location you can see. If you're unaware of your surroundings, you have no idea.
But teleporting is like before you get fully permafrosted. The whole point is once you get like half stacks, you can teleport and they're all gone.
So once you have max stacks, if somebody starts to do fire damage to you, although specifically for petrified, it says you are resistant to all damage. Does it say that? Hold on. Petrified automatic.
And yeah, because not only can you not see, but with no speaking, you can't do verbal components either.
I would also say, first of all, this is just a note for petrified. Why are you resistant to psychic damage when you're petrified? That shouldn't necessarily resist that unless there's some magical shield around your mind like Magneto's helmet. But
I think it's just to indicate that you're basically like a statue now. Like, you're aware but not you.
Sure.
So there's really nothing to damage there.
I feel like you're
so I'm almost now. I don't want to necessarily like completely disrupt this weapon, but part of me is now wondering, what if there was like a duality here where bow works as intended, but once they're encased, I kind of like the idea of if the bow could no longer do them damage, but the melee could. But the problem is once you switch to the melee, it's actually fire damage. So you could do a bunch of damage with the bow, but once they go fully encased in ice, the only way to damage them is to switch to melee. But the melee immediately starts to bring them out of the ice. Not fully, but one stack at a
somebody else would
time.
have to do. So somebody else would have to do the damage to them
Yeah.
afterwards. Then I would just keep using my bow. I would freeze them and send them.
I'm just saying for like that's what I'm saying, like, but more for like the lore of the weapon would make more sense, like if this were to be like a solo thing, but with a party, that would be. I'm just trying to think of it, yeah, because the bow is really it. The bow is the primary focus for this dual weapon, and that's what I'm trying to get around. Is I don't mind it. I didn't read anything that really specifically. I mean, this is the part that got the description in the lore. So again, I'm thinking the bow is the focus, but if that's the case, I'm trying to, I guess, understand why does it even have the ability to switch? Because realistically, there's nothing, again, aside from the enemy closed distance on you, there's not a lot of situations I can imagine where it's beneficial to switch. You'd always want to attempt to be the bow, to have the bow. Now, granted, 80 feet, but it's like, I forget how 5th edition specifically does like their ranges, but I mean, I can't imagine that this is going to be such a detriment that I'm not going to be able to use this more often than not. I mean, imagine, the game is meant to have a ranger who's going to always be at range, right? So I don't know. I just wish there was a more of a reason. I'm just trying to just say that there would be nice if the melee had at least one more ability that either complemented or somehow, not necessarily contradicted, but either went with or slightly in friction of what the bow is doing with its extra bonus action. Because otherwise,
look,
what situation would I get into that a ranger with a short sword or a dagger wouldn't get into? You know what I mean? Cosmic says when they designed the concept, they were torn between two names, so they figured why not give each of it its own name. But it was made over a year ago, so of course this is not necessarily up to the same standard as some of their more recent submissions.
Sure. I'll say, let me see. It's theoretically already a bonus action. Booming Blade is another one of my favorite cantrips. Now, again, it wouldn't really fit the theme because it's not really cold damage; it's thunder damage. But I mean, you could just reflavor it. Like we're already saying, it's like spell effects, not necessarily the spell itself. Basically, what Booming Blade does is whenever you hit somebody with an attack, they're wreathed in this like sonic energy, and if they move before the the spell ends, and when it hits them, it just lasts for a round. They take a D8 of thunder damage. So like you could definitely change that to cold damage. You could, I mean, maybe even change the trigger from if they move to something else. If they, I don't know. But maybe something like that. But again, this it does scale with you too. So like you could do that extra like 1d4 or d4 or d8 of damage. What are you saying? Both damage rolls increase.
Actually, let me.
Oh,
What is the one I'm thinking of?
that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. Booming Blade just got a lot better. Dang, read the spell, know the spell. God bless America. I think Booming Blade could be the answer. Let me look at Green Flame Blade.
Okay, I have an idea. This could work the same. Okay, hang on now.
Yeah, you can totally do
and then and it can't. Oh yeah. Okay. Cosmic, I have an idea that may go perfectly in line with exactly how the bow is operating. We're gonna dismiss that real quick. So with how the bow is operating, I think I found a way that we can rope in how to make the melee side more viable as an option. Because right now, this is just doing a lot. It's doing crazy amounts of work. But again, I just don't feel um I just don't feel like it is hitting the right spot. So what does Philip say? Personally, I think there are too many homemade items that misinterpreted powerful with good. DM would never allow an item with a race with a wall of text as abilities. Yeah. I mean, and that's fair. A lot of the times you don't want, you want something that's crisp, clear cut, straightforward. I do get that, right? Like you want to make sure people can understand it. But okay, so with the bow, it has as a bonus action you can cast Ray of Frost. What's up?
I don't know if Cosmic can hear us right now. I think they might have hit some ads. I don't know if they're open.
I thought I canceled the ads before they went. Sorry.
No.
Sometimes I have a chance to push them off.
Postpone them. Was that what that little green box is?
Yeah.
I keep seeing that.
Yeah, usually I think like up to like 3 times a stream we can postpone them for like a few minutes. So I tried to think about that if we're in the middle of something like uber important. But when Cosmic lets us know they get back, I'll give my example. But yeah, because with this one, I like the idea that this one has that bonus action, but it is just kind of crazy work, right? Oh, cool. Cosmic's back. So here's something, Cosmic, that I think would tie right into this bonus action, right? This bonus action, Ray of Frost, but Ray of Frost also gets the range, right? So let's kind of take this same example for the melee weapon. And when you switch to melee weapon, to make this something that you would want to use, why not let the melee weapon have its own bonus action? That as a bonus action, you can cast, or the weapon itself can cast Chill Touch. But just like how the bow let Ray of Frost go at its distance, the melee weapon would only let you do Chill Touch on a melee attack. So it removes the range. And of course, it changes it from necrotic damage to cold damage. But what that would do is, as a bonus action, this would basically get to add an extra 1d8 of cold damage. This one also makes them not be able to regain hit points until the start of your next turn. And if you hit an undead target, they have disadvantage. So this one would give a few more of those extra bonuses to make changing to melee viable, especially when you're dealing with something like undead. Or if you want to do a little extra damage, because while Ray of Frost does quite a bit at its range, at least this would also do more cold damage while you're at melee.
So
and this one would prevent healing, which is also something the bow can't
do. Although I'm kind of finding it a little bit hard to justify the healing aspect of it, like what's stopping you from healing just because it's cold. Like I get necrotic doing that, but I was also thinking this might be a little much. Again, it would be way too much for a cantrip, but imagine if this had some. I'm trying to find a way to incorporate basically doing a little bit more damage and like making them vulnerable or shifting their resistance by 1 level, right? So if you're immune, you become resistant. If you're resistant, it becomes normal. If you're normal, it becomes vulnerable, right? Like, imagine if instead of giving them disadvantage, that happened for Chill Touch, because I do really like the idea of that.
Oh, okay. So what if the melee attack? What if it did an extra D4 of cold damage for every stack of Perma-Frost? So using the melee damage basically compounds on itself, almost guaranteed. Like you said, if you change the language to any one of your cold die is maxed, then you do a stack. But if every stack also gives you an extra die, using the melee weapon would compound on itself, making getting them to permafrost state like it would also give itself a matching chance to be useful to getting them into that incapacitated state. And it doesn't add a whole lot. It still adds a little bit of damage, but it's more about tying it into making it more effective to the state. So you still get an extra D4, but it's also cold damage, so you get an extra chance at inflicting another stack, which would give you another D4.
So does that mean that if I had the third level of this, and they had 3 stacks of the permafrost condition on them, that whenever I hit them with an attack, I would roll 6d4 extra damage?
Yeah. Which is, in those situations, justifiably a decent amount of damage, but you still have to get there with the stacks, right? Because that's the whole point. The whole point is getting them stacks. So I think that's where if you want extra damage, that's a great way to do it. Because you can hit them with the bow to get a couple stacks, change to melee close distance, and then use that to do extra damage plus inflict more stacks, which gives you more damage, which gives you more stacks, which gets them incapacitated quicker. So I think that would be the justifiable reason for me to want to play melee every now and again, because otherwise the bow is just, again, too powerful to ever switch off of.
So here's the deal. With what we're talking about so far, this has got to be at minimum very rare. This is a very powerful rare weapon.
I'm down with it. I kind of like the idea that it should be very rare. I like what it does. And again, with something that takes 2 attunement slots, that's unheard of. That definitely deserved to be very rare, if not higher. So yeah, I'm down with that. Like I said, I like the concept. I love the concept of this. I think it has a great direction. I do think that there's a lot of language that needs to be a little bit tidied up. I think there's just some confusions in how it's written and how it operates. I would say that its biggest detriment right now is that there's just not enough of a reason to use its melee. I would say that a close second to that is it does a lot of damage with that Ray of Frost. Like I would also suggest again, with it being rare, I don't know what that would be considered. Like, when would you give that? When would you give your players a rare weapon versus a very rare, right? Because this doesn't sound like I'd want to give this before 10th level, because those bonus actions, like, that's just going to wipe the table with almost anything if you get those out. Because Ray of Frost is just so devastating, especially at that range. So I'm not sure like exactly when you would give this to them, but I would definitely say that it does a lot of damage, which is a little bit scary for some DMs. But first and foremost, I just don't know what the benefit of switching to melee would be. So I would like to see, because Cosmic even mentioned in chat, potentially doing like a bonus action, right? Like having a bonus action that does proc, but they just couldn't find anything. They said that Chill Touch just didn't really feel like it made much sense, which, sure. I mean, I get it. It's interesting because it is called Chill Touch, but it is necromancy. So, yeah, it kind of would work because it is like the cold elemental weapon, but I also get it. You do have to modify it. The
longest ranges of any cantrip, which is wild.
But that's why I suggested, kind of like how the bow extended Ray of Frost, this would be turned into a melee only attack.
And that's very valid. I just meant the name in general. Like,
yeah, it's a very, very weird spell that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for sure.
But it's yeah, I definitely feel like there should be some sort of balance there. I personally think that the Ray of Frost should not outpace your attack damage with the bonus action. I think that the Ray of Frost should do level 1 Ray of Frost energy as just a bonus action. Like that to me would feel right, because just action economy in general, I feel like I should be able to do more with my action than I do with my bonus action. That's why it's a bonus action. It's a little additional action that I can do, right? But if I feel like my bonus action is more valuable, now if I flip a switch and like a bunch of stuff happens, the action that I'm doing with my bonus is just a flipping of a switch. It's nothing like massive. Just
Would
a
you
tiny negative
say
effect.
if this had some sort of charge, like some sort of economy, so as a bonus action, you can do the Ray of Frost, but if it said something like you can do this only so many times per long rest, per day, per whatever, would that change your opinion?
I would say if it said something like dude, imagine so Ray of Frost, the way it levels up is like you add an additional die up to 4, depending on like what level you are. What if it's like you had to like get hits with your attack to basically charge it up? And you can charge it up. Like if you get 2 hits, then you get the second level version of it. If you get 3 hits before you use it, you get the third level version of it. If you get 4 hits, then you get the max level version of it. So it's like as I'm doing my shots with my main action, I'm charging up this Ray of Frost in the background, and then boom, I sling my bonus action, Ray of Frost. It does whatever damage it does based upon how I charged it up. But if it were doing something like that, because then it would be based on actually getting hit, so it wouldn't just charge up every time you fire it. It would only charge up every time you hit something.
Hey, Cosmic, elemental empowerment, does that proc at the start of every initiative, regardless of what form it's in? Like if I start initiative with the bow, because based on this description, it kind of also sounds like elemental empowerment is only for the melee version. Because now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
if we look at this, if the effect is that you gain resistance to cold damage, if that's just based on the weapon period, regardless of what version it's in, and elemental empowerment is regardless of what versions it's in, and the permafrost is regardless of what version it's in, then technically the melee doesn't do anything unless elemental empowerment only can be accessed during its melee form. So it resets each combat, but it can be applied to the bow form if you start with it. Okay, so if elemental empowerment can be applied to the bow form, if that's what you start initiative with, then yeah, the switching to melee. Okay, wait. So if switching to melee, okay, Cosmic. When we switch to the melee version, do we lose Ray of Frost as a bonus action? Is that only something the bow can do? Because now I'm thinking about it. Because we read this one first, but if all of this, if the effect and the elemental empowerment were written under the bow and we read this one first, what does the actual melee weapon do outside of bludgeoning and slashing? Because if we lose Ray of Frost, then there really is no benefit to the melee side. But if we keep Ray of Frost, if at bare minimum Ray of Frost is always a bonus action, but it just loses the range. You know what I mean? Then we have something to work with here. But now I'm really confused because if elemental empowerment is just the weapon itself, we definitely need the melee to do something because as of right now, the melee doesn't do anything.
I will say the only difference that I can think of is if I am in melee combat with somebody, all my attacks are disadvantage.
True.
If somebody's up on me, all my attacks are at disadvantage if I'm wielding a ranged weapon. Like that's really the only like advantage to using and wielding a melee weapon in this particular scenario. And if at the point in time in which you find this weapon, you are spec'd as a melee fighter. I'm a paladin. I'm a fighter. I'm a whatever. I'm specifically built myself to do melee. I got heavy armor. I want to be in the thick of things. If that is the type of fighter that I am, I'm probably not going to be using the ranged one as much as I use the melee one, even if it has Ray of Frost.
Mm.
Because
But I feel like that in a party, that's probably not the player or the character that would be taking this, right? If there's no one proficient in range, then yeah, I could see that. But
Sure.
yeah, because I mean, I guess because realistically, if you're in that situation, if you're not spec to be a ranger and no one else is spec for ranged combat, you still get the permafrost stats. I mean, that's still available, right? But I do feel like it really shoots this weapon in the foot if you were to give it. I mean, I really feel like this is definitely designed to be a bow. So I guess my other thing too is I dig the idea that it changes form, but as of right now, it would be better just as the bow with everything. If everything that we read about the melee side applies to the bow, except that's added, this is 100% fine by itself as a bow. I get the idea of not wanting to have to carry a second weapon if, combat changes, but since you have to spend an action to change it anyway, I'm not seeing the major benefit other than you still get your stacks. So, if that's the case, if the whole case is that melee is second thought and this is primarily a ranger's weapon, fine. Like that is totally fine. I just would like that um in the verbiage, in the language. I want the language to say that
Sure.
this is a bow with a melee backup form. But if it's really treated and presented as this is a weapon with two forms, I would expect that the
Now,
other form does equal or opposite of what the other, the first form does.
now, and I would like to get this point of clarity from you, Cosmic, if you can.
I'm gonna grab some
Does
water real
this
quick.
weapon Mhm. Does this weapon have the ability to change into any melee form, similar to a packed weapon that a warlock would have? Does this weapon have the ability to go from being a longsword to a rapier to a dagger to a mace to a warhammer to a battle axe, whatever? And it switch between all these different forms when we're talking about it being a variant? Or are we talking about variants in the same way that we talk about a plus one weapon can be a weapon of any type, just depends on how you find it? That point of clarity is important to me because this is a short bow with a short bow's range. It's intended as a sword, but the DM could introduce it to any melee weapon they pick when the party finds it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, so with that, if it's supposed to be one specific weapon, it is supposed to be either it's supposed to be a sword, it's supposed to be a mace, it's supposed to be a whatever, but it just
You would
could be
think that would
one
be
thing.
decided upon attunement, right? Like when attuned, it attunes to the weapon that you were most proficient
So
in.
he's talking about you're supposed to find it as a specific weapon type. You don't choose it at the point of attunement. It just is something in the world. So somebody made a bunch of long swords with this ability because it's a rare weapon. There are more than one of these out there in the world. So there's a bunch of longsword versions. There's a bunch of mace versions. There's a bunch of whatever versions of this out there that can turn into short bows. But that would be my other question is why is this specifically short bow when the melee weapon has the ability to be a variant? Is it specifically for the range, just to say, hey, it can't be anything other than this range? And I also don't want it to be like crossbow like it needs to be this type of bow, you know? And I want to make sure it has this range. So short bow is what fits that. So I'm just gonna keep it there. So there could be a niche playstyle where you can have it attuned to two PCs and it swaps forms automatically when it changes hands, each PC using. Oh,
That's that's an
that's
interesting
kind of
idea. I'd have to sit on that one for a little bit.
interesting.
So well, now what I'm
That
thinking
is
of is
interesting.
like based on the conversation you were just having with Cosmic and trying to understand like the idea that so this is a regular weapon that has its ability to turn into a bow, right? It's not the bow that has a backup melee. It's a melee that has this OP bow form, right? That's what I got from your conversation. Is
Oh, kind
is it
of
like,
like
what direction is this supposed to go? Because the reason why I asked that is, if the idea is that these weapons with these, like, these melee weapons were made, and their intent is it's a melee weapon that turns into a bow, that could change the lore based on if they're bows that can turn into weapons when an archer is surrounded. And the reason why I say that is, if they're melee first, designed to turn into a bow, I would suggest, instead of um changing the weapon, it's almost like the sword can be held differently, like almost just like if you hold the sword upside down, it now becomes like this bow with this extra feature, that's used as like a bonus action, or as like, like the proficiency bonus, like you do that. Just mainly, instead of making it change forms, just make it have a ranged attack built in, is almost kind of like what it would sound like. Because then you can just find the weapon. Because like, as a DM, if I'm reading through this and it's like, hey, here's this like shape shifting thing that's supposed to only be one thing, but you can make it anything you want. I'm like, well, I could do that to anything. Like, I could take anything I find in a book and say, well, I just want that to be a dagger instead of a longsword. But to have that built in as the concept, it's almost like, well, why not make a roll table? Like, if you made a roll table,
mm.
it would make it a lot more obvious that this is designed to be a randomized find.
So
But for attunement, especially if it takes forms, I feel like it would be so much more beneficial that when you attune to it, it automatically takes the form of your most used weapon or your favorite weapon, because then it's yours. You can only use it. I don't mind saying it can only be used in that form, but it definitely needs to be clarified, why does it take that one and only form. And if you're just going to randomly throw it into a gaming session, you could run the risk of nobody wanting it because it's not, the weapon they want to use. So
sure.
that's the direction that I think I would take it. Is, it just seems a little bit weird that it's designed to be anything, but it's not going to be anything. It's only going to be one thing.
Yeah. I get with what you were saying about the why you chose a specific one for the longbow or for the bow, but not a specific one for the melee weapon. Or at least gave more options for the melee weapon, seeing as I was supposed to be a sword. I think, and to your point, Vortex, when we're talking about other weapons, like I think that there is a certain extent where certain weapons that are very specific, like say if there was like a warhammer that was like a magical weapon, and you could just be like, oh, I'll just reflavor that as anything else. I think a lot of the times when the weapon is specific, it's because there's a mechanical purpose to that element of it, right? So it's like if it's a warhammer, there's something about it being a hammer that's involved in the magical ability that it has. If it's an axe, there's something about it being an axe that's involved in the magical ability that's there. At least that's what I found. Like I could be wrong on that, but like to my knowledge, to my experience, it feels like when it's specific. But when it's not specific, for the most part, there's variant possibilities, like with the plus ones, like with the no crits, like with the whatever else is out there. So um I will say I I I kind of like what we were talking about initially. Um if this is just supposed to be I get what you're saying when you're talking about being being specific, whether it's supposed to be a bow that can turn into a weapon or a melee weapon that can turn into a bow, like having that idea like set in mind. I think my initial thought it was that it's a third option. It's just a weapon that could be a lot of things,
Hmm.
right? Just a weapon that could be a lot of things. And so like imagine if, now, granted, this feels weighted towards the bow, but if it were balanced on both ranged and melee side, if it could just be any weapon, if it could, it's just like a shape changing weapon that could be pretty much anything, with the exception that the ranged stats are static,
Mm-hmm.
so that there wasn't the issue with all of the other elements of it, right? Um, that is where my initial mindset went with something like this. Is it's just like, hey, this group of artificers, of crafters, whatever, they got together and was like, hey, I want a weapon that can do melee and ranged. I want it to be able to cover both fields, right? I want different people to be able to use this, different weapon styles to be able to use this. So I want somebody with a longsword proficiency. I want somebody with a dagger proficiency. So it literally is like, um, uh, um, and I do like your idea of choosing its form at attunement, right? So it's like a weapon where when one person attunes to it, if for whatever reason they get rid of it, they don't use it anymore, the next time somebody attunes to it, the weapon just knows what weapon you're best at, and it becomes that when it comes to your melee weapon. And
Hmm.
it would probably do something similar to your ranged weapon. It would just all of a sudden look like the weapon that you are most apt to use. It would just have the properties of
Yeah, still the same stats.
whatever. Yes. So like that's my instinct and that's my heart for this. I'm curious if that's the intent. I'm curious if Cosmic is like, no, this is supposed to be uh uh static and or specific, or if it's just meant to be able to be like, it can be whatever you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
If it
And
matters
I
how
think
much
that's I think
it
that's just kind
matters.
of like been like the main overarching like comment is just we just need more language. We just like not like wordiness. We just really
Sure, sure,
need
sure.
more decisive understanding about what these things are and what their intent is because there's a lot to be inferred here, but there's not a lot of guidance. There's not a lot of directive on exactly how am I supposed to implement this as a DM into my setting. You know,
Sure, sure.
it definitely has its place. It could solve a lot of things. Going back, I mean, even the description itself gives me plenty of ideas for things that I would want to do with it. By like the description alone. But yeah, I'm having the hardest time really conceptualizing because when we've talked about this before. When I think of magical weapons and their creation, most things are created for a purpose. Most things are created with intent. And what I'm really trying to understand is when this was created, what was the intent? Because being so weighted on the bow, I'm really having a hard time understanding who else is this for, if not an archer, if not a ranger,
Sure.
who is meant to pick this up? Because everything is resting on the bow being good. Otherwise, it's just giving you that permafrost stack, which is totally fine. But it's I don't know if it's really standing up to it using two slots. You know what I mean? And also considering that it's kneecapping you at a D6, so no matter what weapon it is, it's not even going to be the most powerful weapon you could. Oh, there it is. There's the snooze. Um, you know what I mean? Like it's not even the most powerful version of a weapon that you could be carrying. So even though it's
So
kneecapping you at a D6 with your melee side, and it's only giving you those stacks, I'm not sure that those stacks would be better than other magical weapons that you might come across. So I feel like
I
again,
I'll say that if yes, it is only a D6 base, but for the most part, let me why is that like that? Of course, I get ads as soon as I'm trying to find something. But I'm trying to think, and I cannot think of any base. Well, there's got to be some, but for the most part, the majority of the higher level magic weapons, like even a +3 longsword only does longsword damage, right? It's not like all of a sudden doing 3d4 or 3d6 damage or 3d10 damage. It's
yeah.
still just doing the 1d10 damage. It's just adding the three the static 3 to the damage, right? So
Hmm.
even that and that's what rare, very rare, right? Like that's up there in rarity, in theoretical power level. So I think that that alone can make up for the 1d6. But on top of that, you get an additional D4 of damage on top of this weapon, and that has the potential of multiplying. And especially if you add what you're talking about, like so, at most this weapon is doing 1d6 plus 3d4 damage. At least this is doing 1d6 plus 1d4 damage, and that's
Yeah.
every
So
hit.
it's around so it's a it's meleeing at a D10, which is fine. I mean, it is doing at least that much, regardless of what weapon you're choosing. So yeah, there is that, but I don't know. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around why the melee side just isn't doing anything else other than just being a melee weapon with the stack.
Yeah. It's I definitely think there should be something else that's there, and I think even Cosmic alluded to the fact that he wanted something else to be there, but just couldn't figure out exactly what,
I mean,
which
it
is
could be
fair.
as simple, like, you know what I mean? Like, it could be passive stuff. You know what I mean? It's like when dealing, when holding the melee weapon, you ignore difficult terrain of, of ice, or ice territory. Um, uh,
Sure.
um, I'm just trying to think of like what else would holding the melee weapon like, benefit you with in terms of like how else how this lore actually works. Um, Hell, honestly, I wouldn't even mind like Cosmic mentioned Shatter. Why can't the
What's that meant to
melee
say?
why can't the melee side cast Shatter? Like if I get Ray of Frost, what if the melee side had the ability to cast Shatter? So if Shatter also treats fully ice petrified creatures as objects, then you use the bow to fully petrify them, switch to melee, and zap them with a Shatter spell.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Now,
Take it easy,
granted,
Huilepa.
Shatter is a second level spell, so which means it's a lot higher.
Right, but that's
But
why we're not giving them like we're not giving them that as a bonus action. It's just more like as a bonus action you can trigger it, but it would be like
okay,
once or twice, like per combat or something. Like
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
basic,
yeah.
or like you said, on an attack you can cast Shatter on a hit once per turn. Like however you want to balance out the ability, but it would make a lot of sense that if Shatter is a specific advantage against someone who's fully petrified, why wouldn't the melee be able to do it? Kind of like you said before, like a smite, like add kind of like its
Yeah,
own version of smite, but it's Shatter because Shatter specifically works against a
I
fully
like that.
petrified creature.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think again, if we word it very similar to how we were wording the other one, it where
No,
you
Hecate, this isn't the permafrosted condition. It's slightly different.
yes, this is not your condition, but I think that
It's
would be
more
very
akin
cool.
to becoming petrified by ice, so you slowly
Right.
freeze from the ground up.
I think he's done
Um,
something similar, but just in a very different way. I'd have to go look it back up again. But Shatter, it does 3d8 damage. I think you could totally. I'm curious
and
what kind of
we
damage.
also heard from Cosmic. Cosmic said it suggested even like, what if the melee gave you advantage on saving throws against cold damage? I'm totally fine against that with that too because you already have resistance, so you're already going to take half. But then you also get advantage on saving throws to cut that in half. Like
Sure.
I'm totally fine with all of that.
Yes, I will say I don't think when you think about how often I'm going to use my bonus action for Ray of Frost, to how often I'm going to be rolling saving throws specifically for cold damage. Um, I would say maybe if it was all Constitution saving throws,
mm.
that might be getting closer. Even then, Constitution saving throws aren't that often.
But Cosmic,
Um,
what do you think about the idea of the melee side getting a limited number of Shatter? Because you did mention specifically that Shatter would work against a fully petrified or fully frozen enemy. That would give me a perfect reason to want to switch between them because the bow would help me get them there, and then the melee would help me seal the deal. And if you worded it kind of like a smite, where whether you want to make it on a crit or once per combat or twice per combat if you
so
wanted to limit it, but being able to do that, I think, would be that 1-2 combo
I
we're
don't.
kind of looking for with the buildup of these abilities.
I don't even think you need to limit it. I think it should read like this: whenever you hit a target that is frozen solid, in addition to the weapon's damage, it has the effect of the shatter spell. So if there are buddies around, and it triggers at the point of impact, right? So basically, with the shatter spells, there's a 10-foot radius. So when you hit this person, everyone within 10 feet of that person is gonna get 3d8 thunder damage, and the target is also gonna immediately get that 3d8
Nope.
thunder
Okay. Nope.
damage.
Nope. I got it. I got it. I got it. Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. I got it because Cosmic is a little bit concerned that that's a thunder based one, and he kind of wants more
I
ice
agree.
based, and he wants
I agree
something
too.
custom. So here it is. Here's the custom ice smite. When you are using the melee weapon, on hit, you may choose to activate ice smite. When you activate ice smite, right? So on hit, you can choose to activate ice smite, right? When you activate it, you may choose to expend a number of stacks, a number of stacks of permafrost, right? So if they have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, you may basically you smite them with ice smite, and you are shattering off the number of stacks you wish. And that's
Love that.
for every number of stacks you take off, it's a d8 of damage, and that goes out to 10 feet. So if they have 3 stacks, but you still want to inflict them, you can just do 2.
Explosion that goes out to 10 feet.
Yes. So the melee can smash out the ice that not only causes them damage, but does explosive damage, kind of like what you were saying, out to 10 feet. But you get to choose how much.
I like
But
that.
for
I like
every
that a lot.
stack you break off, it's another damage die
I
up. So
also
one
like
stack
you
is like
specifically
E8.
being immune to this damage.
Yes, it wouldn't hurt you, but you just walk up and you slap them, and if you expel all, so if they're fully frozen, you can expend all of their stacks. Now they come out of being
So,
frozen, but they take
now-
5 extra d8s, and so do their buddies.
So
Cryogenic smite.
here's what I've always wanted for something like Shatter or Petrified, or not Shatter, but for Permafrost or Petrified or whatever. When you get frozen solid and you get hit, like I want to make you crumble. I want you to turn. Like I want the ability to make that happen somehow. Like it's not like, oh, you're released from the shatter. It's
Right.
that your arm fell off because it's frozen solid. Your leg.
Gotcha.
fell
Yeah,
off.
you want to do like more
You're
like
now in
heavier damage.
pieces. Like now, I don't think, because it's so easy to get them up, I don't think necessarily this is the direction to go for that. But I love the idea of.
I mean, I would just say put that as a crit. If you really wanted it to, just say, just have a special bonus that when you crit with this weapon, you have a percentage chance of dismembering a limb. So whenever you crit, you roll percentiles or roll d20. You have a 25% chance of dismembering a limb. Just that would be kind of a cool. Just if they're fully frozen,
ones that are fully frozen, right?
yeah, fully frozen, or and then you crit, you could like dismember them, which would be interesting. Cosmic says there's a question on the idea that I was having for like the ice smite. What is multiple enemies? Oh, what if multiple enemies are next to each other? They all have permafrost stacks, and you trigger this. Would it be a chain reaction? I would say no. I would say that it only works on the target you're attacking, and they don't get to do splash explosion damage.
I
Personally.
might say if others around it have permafrost stacks, if this is doing cold damage to them, they might get another one.
Yes, I would be totally fine with them getting additional stacks for the extra cold damage, because this would be an explosion of cold damage. But I don't think that they should. I don't think you should get to remove theirs. But what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the idea that if you're giving them these stacks with the intent of freezing them solid, but once they're frozen, what are you going to do with them, right? But what if you could use those stacks to your advantage in a different way by able to expend them, take them off the enemy, but via an explosion? So the enemy is going to take more damage, as well as their enemies around them.
I
I
love
guess
that idea. I think it's fabulous. I think that
the
works
other
really,
option
really well.
too is permafrost doesn't do any damage to the creatures either. So you could also just say that permafrost does, like 1d4 ice damage, like kind of like, being on fire. But it's whatever. So yeah, I would like something along those lines because again, all I'm looking for with this is just why would I change it? And all it needs is something. All it needs is that one opportunity. It doesn't have to be, I don't need a reason to use this 50-50, right? I don't need a reason to use this weapon in its melee form as often as its ranged form. But what I want is when I change it, there's a reason to other than, oh, I get disadvantage for shooting them. Because that's what a sidearm is for. That's what the dagger would be for, or a hand crossbow. Like there's other options for that I don't feel like a 2-slot attunement is really justifying. Oh, in this one case where you'd get disadvantage, you can just attack them normally but still have the stack. It's just
Yeah.
not. It wouldn't require the 2 extra slots in my opinion. Like I feel like that would just be a cool bonus feature to a magical
You
weapon is that it
really
can
want to
shapeshift.
feel for 2 slots, you really want to feel like you have 2 weapons. You really want to feel like I have 2 very viable, very usable, powerful, and strong weapons. If
And any
one
way to
of
make
them
them
is
link.
really that,
Any way to make them link, right? Like to play off each other.
yeah. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love the fact that the idea is that the initial ability goes across both of them. The which was it called? The elemental empowerment. Like, I love that the elemental weapon is across both of them. Like, I love that it's the same weapon. It just does different things in each form, right? Um, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's very
I mean, the only other thing I would offer, there is one other thing I would offer. If you wanted this to primarily be the specialty bow, and you really were having your heart set that the melee doesn't need anything, right? Let's just, because Cosmic knows what he wants, Cosmic knows what he's going for.
sure.
So let's just say that there is a situation where this is working as intended, where the bow is supposed to be the focus, the melee is supposed to be a backup option for those moments. No harm, no foul there. For the second attunement slot, I would suggest then adding a third form because you have the slashing and bludgeoning for the melee, you have the piercing for the ranged for the bow. Why not allow it to turn into a shield or a buckler? That in that case would give you, say, advantage on saving those against ice. Maybe while wielding the shield, you are immune to ice spells or ice damage. Something along those lines where it's primarily focused on the bow. The weapon is there
You
for
know
a
what?
backup, and then the shield is
You
a
know what?
once in a while. Maybe it's good to have the shield
Do
instead.
that. Love that. But if you're gonna do that, action, and then it goes back to whatever form it was using, right? And
Oh, kind
leave
of like
that like
reaction to turn it into a shield, give
yes,
yourself a quick little
yes,
AC bump, give
yes.
yourself a
You can
bonus
either
to
use it as an
ice,
AC
and then it
bump. You can use it
immediately.
as advantage on dexterity saving throws, or you can use it. Yeah, you could basically use
Yeah,
it as casting the spell shield. You can use it as giving yourself advantage on dexterity saving throws. Um,
I kind of like that because it
I'm
also covers all of the action economy because it has its own action to switch forms and to attack. It has a bonus action for Ray of Frost, and then that would be a reaction whenever you wanted to get a bonus to AC and or against frost-based attacks. Because even Cosmic suggested how would we add that in of getting the advantage against fire attacks or anything. So having a reaction to just kind of like turn whatever you're holding into a quick ice shield, I think that actually kind of fucking kicks. Like I would absolutely use that because then I wouldn't have to worry about carrying the shield. It's just a quick once off, like you said, like a free cast of the shield. The AC buff as a buckler could even look like a snowflake, bro. Yeah, just
cool.
snowflake.
Cool. Yes.
So there's a couple different more options for you, Cosmic. Like I said, the number one comment, I would just clean the language up. Just make it a little bit more clear what it's intended to do, both the abilities and what you want the weapon to do in the hands of the DM and the players, right? Those things were just not as clear. My personal advice, I would at least like the weapon to do a little bit more, or if we're really set on the melee side just being there, I really like this idea of a reactionary shield. I think that would make it feel more well-rounded, and I would feel that the shield melee side are just those. They're enhancements to the bow to make it more encompassing in combat. Instead of it feeling like it's a
Right.
80% bow, 20% sword, right? Now it would feel
Right.
more like, a good 75% bow and then like a 14-14, kind of thing. So
For sure.
I think that would be really cool. But that's it. That's really it. The language can be cleaned up, and I would just like a better understanding and a better feel for why would I ever change it from the bow. But otherwise, I also kind of agree with chat. I'd probably put this around the 15th level, like party. I don't think I'd give it to him before then, as is, or even with some of the suggestions. But I do think it'd be a lot of fun to use. I think it's going in the right direction. I just think it's a little bit difficult to understand, and without without that understanding, I don't think it quite works as is. But it does give me a lot of ideas. It does make me think more. I love when weapons change and can be fluid in combat.
Yeah.
One based on ice is really cool. I would. I almost want to say I'd like to feel it like I know it's all ice based, but I really also just want to understand more about this lore too. Like the compressed snowflakes, uh the forgotten past. Like there's something I feel that's there that we haven't quite pulled out just yet that I feel could really be put into the description a little bit, right?
For sure.
Talking about like because I mean we're compressing all of those snowflakes, which are compressing, the souls. I feel like that could just be strewn about in all of the abilities as well. If it's ice, then how it could be fluid. I mean, there ice isn't, ice is a solid, but it's, all things are a fluid.
It's fluffy enough to flow. It's fluffy enough to flow.
All right, yeah. I get it. I really like the concept. Usability wise, again, as is, it's a little bit too difficult to understand how to implement for me. Um, and I would just like to see it do a little bit more in its alternative forms. Now that we've really gotten to see a little bit more about it, though, if I'm just gonna look at it, so I'm gonna give it the best chance because if I'm just looking at it as a bow with a backup melee form, that's how I'm gonna actually approach this, because I feel like that gives it the best chance for compatibility. Because if I look at this as a 50-50 weapon that has two full forms, it feels absolutely incomplete. But I don't want to look at it that way because it doesn't sound like that's what Cosmic was going for. I don't think this was ever meant to be two different, completely different weapons in one. I think it was supposed to be a weapon with some extra features. So, with that being said, I really like what the bow does. I would like to see a little bit more with the melee, but it makes it totally understandable. I also think that my last comment is if we're going to keep it as true to how it's written and we're just going to clean up the language, I might even suggest changing this part down here from the action, it taking an action to go from melee to ranged, mainly because there's just not enough benefit to change it to melee to justify a whole action, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I wouldn't mind that being a bonus action, so you can't swap and cast Ray of Frost in the same turn. But that would make a little bit more sense that I could go, like if someone closes distance on my turn, I could switch from range to melee with a bonus action and then immediately follow up with an attack. I feel like without any special abilities on the melee side, I at bare minimum want to be able to change weapons and then immediately follow up with an attack.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can see that.
But with that being said, in those particular cases, as someone who likes to run archers, I think that's kind of cool to be able to be mid shot and then someone's just right there, and then without dropping or changing your weapon, you just like take your bow and like through the middle of the air, it just changes from a bow to a sword as you slash the person. Like there is something very awesome about that. Let's see. Elemental Cold was good. Permafrost stacks were good. Um, honestly, if I'm gonna say if it wasn't for this, it would. This is actually I'm gonna have to kind of just knock it down a point because it is just it's the aspect of the 1 point doesn't count. You know what I mean? Like the fact that you can
Right.
spend 1, 2, or 3, but the one doesn't count. I can't really get over that either. So that if this was a little bit more uh finished and polished, it would have gotten probably another point because as is just this bow with a backup, I like it. I think there's a very viable option to be rare, to be a rare item. I don't think as is it would justify using 2 slots, right? So with that being
Sure.
said, looking at it from that point of view, it's a bow that has a backup melee option with a slightly unpolished empowerment system. And I don't think it necessarily requires 2 slots, and it's a little unclear. But all of that, I like the idea. I love the stacks. I'll give this one a 6, along with the inspiration point. 6 out of 10, I think, is definitely where this falls. If it doesn't get changed too much and it just clears up, this could easily be closer to an 8. But this really kind of like cuts it back and it being not too clear. But if Cosmic does any of the other changes, like adds this shield or adds extra abilities, I'd be more likely to utilize it, mainly because I'm most interested in the fact that it uses 2 slots. I think that's one of the most fascinating aspects, but I feel like it's just not powerful enough to justify. But I
Sure.
want that out of it. I really want this thing to be worth burning 2 attunement slots because there's so many good items that you can attune with. And if
Absolutely.
you're gonna eventually give those up, I would love to see this thing really stand out. And I kind of like how Cosmic will make things stand out in the features that they're meant to stand out in. So if they were to do something like the Snowflake Shield, to even go into immunity or to have an advantage against other ice-based attacks, or if they do something like the Shatter technique or the ability to break out the enemy from the permafrost condition in order to do more damage. Those things I think would make it also just a lot more fun and a lot more versatile, a lot more tactical in the sense of when to change up the weapon, right? And I think those would
Right.
really resemble a 2 attunement slot weapon, which is kind of what I'm hoping for. Might be the thing I take away the most from this is starting to think about 2 attunement slot items. Um,
I like what
that's
that would
definitely
mean
going to
and
be
how
something
that would
I'm
look
going
like.
to think about in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
But that permafrost condition too, slowly like taking away their movement. Um, I really want to play around with also having them do damage, like for every permafrost stack doing a D4 at the start of their turn.
Yeah, I did like that idea too. That was very interesting. I think there's definitely something to be said for, but I also like the idea of using those permafrost stacks to like blow them up.
Right. What do you
Again,
think
kind
about
of like
this
what we
too?
were.
For further for permafrost, what if there was an opportunity that you would take damage if you didn't do anything, but if you used up, say, an action and a bonus action, or a bonus action in your movement, or all of your action, bonus action, and movement to stay warm, quote unquote, you could basically like if you basically don't do anything, you could ward off the effects of the damage. So it's like either
Okay,
you
you're
could
talking
like
about
attack
passive
while you're
damage like being on fire.
yes. So like I'm kind of thinking the permafrost could do that, right? Because all right now, all it does is reduce your movement by 5 until you get max stats. But if it did like a D4 for every stack, and then the person who's frozen could choose to do something to negate that damage, but it would take
See,
their action economy, that
I
could make it
kind
even
of
more
liked the
devastating.
idea of while now, depending on whether you want to do it per stack or not, but I was thinking about like while you are affected by any of these stacks, you take X amount of you take a die more damage when hit.
Oh, like so anybody will do an extra D4 of like or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay. I
That's
like that.
kind
Yeah,
of what
yeah.
I'm
So
thinking.
while you have a stack, anybody can do the extra D4 of damage. That's kind of cool.
Now, granted, that could be good or that could be bad. If nobody hits you, nothing happens. But if five people hit you, then that's five die of damage that you're taking rather than just the one at the beginning of your turn.
Yeah,
So
that. So I kind
that's
of like
fine.
that too. I do like making them more susceptible to everybody else's attacks while they have stacks on them.
Hmm. Like anytime you take an instance of physical damage, I would say physical damage. Like I don't think psychic damage would proc this.
Oh,
Any other type of damage, like you just add a D whatever of cold damage onto that.
you know what would be just an absolutely brutal and devastating condition that you should be able to inflict, and I kind of feel like permafrost might be a good ability to introduce something like this on. What if when you have any stack of permafrost, what if not only does it reduce your speed? Oh, this is diabolical. What if permafrost prevented you from taking the disengage action? Like, think about how many enemies can disengage and get away without providing opportunity attack. But this is just in the case if you can't. If you are engaged with someone, you can't disengage, meaning
I really
you will
like that.
always,
That is not used nearly enough. There's plenty of things that can stop you from doing other things. I don't think there's anything that can stop you from disengaging.
because it doesn't stop you from moving, but with the fact that you can't move fast, the fact is you can't dodge quick enough to negate opportunity attacks. And things like
I
rogues or other creatures that can get out of there. You can
Yeah.
even say you can even go one step further and just say permafrost prevents anything like disengage. So like even Misty Step, you'd still take an opportunity attack kind of thing. Like some kind of verbiage that basically says that opportunity attacks are guaranteed if you move no matter what you do.
I'll say
Outside of like
I'll
teleport,
say
of course.
I think teleporting is yes, but like something like flyby, right? Because flyby is basically where I come by, I do an attack, and I move out without taking attack of opportunity. If I'm affected by permafrost, that doesn't affect. So any non-magical way, because like forced movement, I feel like is forced movement, right? And if you
Oh, yeah, I get you on that one.
but and I think teleporting is the same thing. You're literally just disappearing and you're going somewhere
Yeah.
else. But I think that you're right. Anything that would traditionally say doesn't provoke attack of opportunity, if you are affected by permafrost, it still provokes attack of opportunity.
So it would almost be like a creature affected by permafrost by any amount of permafrost stacks cannot negate attacks of opportunity by non-magical means.
Correct. Yes.
So anything that says no, you prevent attack of opportunity unless it's magical, that just doesn't happen.
Yes.
Advantage for ooh. So like blunt weapons have advantage or do extra damage because they're made of ice. That could be interesting.
I like
Um,
vulnerability to bludgeoning damage for sure.
ooh, here's another one. If we want to make permafrost even more powerful, I think this would be better off if this creature has full stacks. But again, debate amongst yourselves. What if permafrost, either a creature affected by permafrost or when a creature has the max permafrost stacks, whatever you call it, where their resistance to or their vulnerability to fire damage goes down by one notch. So basically, if you could get a fire creature who's immune to fire damage, or something, like fully stacked, they're no longer like. I'm trying to think of like how that would actually work because obviously, with the creature with ice damage doesn't really make much sense. But I'm just trying to think of like if something's immune to something, could this bring them out of immunity if they're in full stack? Basically, if they're frozen, do they lose that immunity somehow?
Well, theoretically, you're getting resistance to everything if you're fully frozen, if you're applying the same rules as petrified,
That's
right?
fair. Okay, yeah, I guess
Um,
you are. So, except for Shatter. Shatter's the only thing.
yes, yes, exactly. Um, actually, that's because you had even made the point like maybe they should be immune to ice damage when they're
When they get fully
uh,
stacked, because at this point they're just
yeah.
ice cube. Like, what would ice damage do to an ice cube? Nothing. Hoilepa, so permafrost, only like you can still it'll still take regular damage if you have the permafrost condition, but if the person with the weapon does ice damage and they do max damage, they will add another permafrost stack. So that's the only real difference there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot that DMs could play with here. I mean, I don't think we'll get a lot of changes from Cosmic, but these are all just other ideas that
Yeah.
definitely make me think that this has a lot of potential. And just this idea, right? These kind of new effects that we're talking about, like this permafrost stack, are I think great ideas for homebrew because a lot of people I think start homebrew with lore and then they try to do it with like situational effects, but stuff like this is really like breaking into that new boundary right there. It's really breaking into new ground of what is D&D missing and what could we really use to fill it up in those situations where the standard effects just don't seem to do enough.
Right.
I mean, also, here's kind of a fun one. Because I think all attuned items should end with some little blurb like this. If this item is ever destroyed while someone is attuned, that person becomes permanently vulnerable to ice damage.
That's crazy.
Like, why not? I mean, it's a 2-slot attunement. If this thing is destroyed and you were attuned to it, you shouldn't just lose its abilities. You should absolutely become susceptible to what it made you strong against. So it by the chance this thing gets destroyed and someone is attuned to it, the fact that they just lose like all of their abilities with cold. I mean, imagine even if it was like a creature, like what like like somehow you got a creature that was already immune to ice to attune with it, and then you got it and destroyed it to make them vulnerable to the very thing that by nature they should be immune to. Could be fucking crazy, right? Like I think all attuned items should have some sort of backfire if you are attuned to it and it's destroyed.
So this is something that's always, and maybe this will be a topic for another day, but when it comes to destroying magical weapons, when it comes to like specifically attacking or destroying any weapons, because most people don't do that. Like I'm not going to be in a fight with somebody and I'm going to target your weapon unless I'm targeting it for heat metal or something like that. Like most of the
More
time
often
you're
than not.
attacking the person, right? But say I did want to hack a weapon, destroy a weapon, break a weapon. Like fifth edition, at least as far as I know, there's no like yes, objects have an AC, right? But usually those are unheld objects, right?
Yeah.
Just object that's like sitting there. Now, even if let's use that example, all right? If it's just an object made out of metal, say the AC of this object is just a 20, it's just a flat 20 because it's so hard and because it's so strong, all right? I hit it like are we saying that it has like a certain number of hit points? Does that increase or decrease depending upon if it's magical or not? Like, how are we determining how easy or hard it is for you to destroy a magical weapon?
It so for like high point in older editions, it usually was depicted on the rarity, value, material, and severity of the magical item, right? +1's easier to destroy than a +5. A animanium sword's harder to destroy than, an ashwood arrow kind of thing, right? So a lot of
When you
that
say
plays into
harder, do you
account.
mean requires different things, or are we saying
Like
that it's just
if you
like
have like a piece of steel versus a wooden stick, even imbued with magic, the wooden stick is still easier to break than like a beam of steel, right? Even if it's imbued, but compared to just a stick, and a magically imbued stick would be vastly harder to break, right? So think of it more along the lines of you just pick up a twig and you could snap it in your hands, right? That would just be a non-magical stick. But if you were to imbue that stick with magic, you could easily put the same size stick that you could just snap onto like two pieces and stand in the middle of it, and it wouldn't even bend, like it wouldn't even bow. That's so
so?
on a regular mortal level, it would take effort, it
But
would
let me
take
ask you this. Let me ask
determination
you
to
this.
break it.
So I take a regular twig. I take a, we'll say, very rare to maybe even legendary magical staff, and then we take a mundane steel sword, and I put them all on little pedestals
Yeah.
next to each other, right? And I myself have a great sword or a great axe or something like that, right? And we're gonna say I'm gonna roll to hit each and every one of these things. And let's say I roll high enough to hit, to do damage, so to speak. Am I doing different amounts of damage to each one of them? Or are some of them have higher ACs than other? Or like what's the idea of the spread that we're talking about when it comes to okay, this one is more resistant to damage? Is it more is it less mechanical and more just the idea of
It really comes on situation, like you know, yeah, I mean, I do it, but like the idea being, um the best way I could do it in layman's terms is think of it in terms of like density. Magic just adds an increased amount of density. So imagine if you know, take a rock, throw it against a tree, you see a giant piece of bark, chunk out. But you take that same rock, throw it against another rock, and only a tiny little, poof comes out. Imagine that the rock that you hit was the same tree imbued with magic. So the same exact material will just act as if it is much stronger. That's the layman's terms. That's exactly how it works.
okay.
But think of it that. So in your analogy, the stick would instantly break, right? As long as you hit it, boom, axe goes right through it. But when it comes to a staff of the same thickness as that stick, but imbued with magic, versus a rod of steel that's non-magical of the same thickness, while I wouldn't say that the magical staff will automatically outdo the steel, the first couple hits will probably look identical. You might see a tiny little like indent in the steel from the tip of your axe, right? It'll make an
Mhm.
indent but not do any damage. You'll probably see the same on the staff for the first couple hits, but it still would. It's not going to last as long. And with every damage it takes, the structure can hold less magic. Remember, items are always the items and their magical components are always technically tied to their value. So while the damage is harder to do, the more damage you inflict, the less valuable, the less structural integrity you have on an item, the less stable the magic is. So while I won't say a magically imbued wood staff would technically last longer than a steel staff, if you hit it 2 or 3 times, you'd probably think they're made out of the same thing. But that staff will deteriorate eventually faster than the steel would naturally. And that will cause the rupture of the magical essence inside because it requires the structure of the magic item to be maintained. Once that is past a certain point, it becomes what's the word I'm looking for? The integrity is broken so much that it becomes unstable. And therefore that magic will usually be released in the most chaotic of ways because kind of like a nuclear, a nuclear power plant, right? Once you get into overload, once the things that are keeping it safe and contained are damaged, there's nothing keeping the energy there. There's nothing keeping the magic flowing properly to
So
be organized inside the item.
when it comes to you saying one's just naturally going to last longer than the other, I'm curious if that includes things like regular wear and tear and degradation. So, for instance, because to a certain extent, I almost had the mindset, well, when it comes to some magic items, that they almost magically, because they are consistently flowing with magic, they almost, in a sense, heal themselves, right?
That's
Like
not a bad way to think about it.
reg- a
Some items
regular
do.
sword, like you have to like sharpen it on a regular basis, but
So
like maybe a
yes,
magical sword.
magical weapons still have to be cared for. It's just in a different way. Magical swords will dull slower, but you do still have to keep them honed. You don't necessarily have to do the full sharpening because they're going to lose a lot less material. Like you don't have to necessarily shave off the material. But when you sharpen them, you are still straightening it out. You are still correcting the imperfections. Those kind of imperfections aren't enough to cause
Mm.
issue with its magical properties, right? We're talking about tiny ones, which is why the staff, like in the previous example, would look exactly like the rod for after the first couple hits, but then it will really start to degrade because it just doesn't have the same integrity. But yeah, a regular magical
I'm
sword does
curious if
still
that
need
has to be.
attention.
forced. Like if I were to take like a magical wooden staff and a mundane sword, right, made out of steel or metal or whatever, and just left them in one place for like 1,000 years.
Hmm.
Sword's gonna rust and it's gonna do whatever. Like, is anything gonna happen to that staff, or is it gonna look the exact same 1,000 years later?
Yes, but it will be extremely obvious the difference. Like, will it change? Yes. Like, it doesn't get to, it will not, unless it has the certain magic in it, right? There are magics that will allow it to maintain its properties, right? Permanency types magics, resustaining type magic. Those things can be put into items to keep them at 100%. But just a plain magical item will deteriorate, but at a much different. If you talk about like 1,000 years, right? One's going to look almost like indistinguishable from a relic, right? It is literally going to be just nearly all rust. But a magical sword might look dirty. It might have a little bit of rust, like it's been out for a couple weeks. But overall, it's still going to be sharp as the day that you put it in the ground. It's still going to be perfectly weighted. It's still going to clean up and polish up perfectly. There's going to be no sign of permanent degradation, but yes, it will maintain natural wear and tear. But think kind of like a vampire. It's just going to be like for every 1 year, it's 100 years, right? So it will deteriorate, but it also comes back a lot quicker, which is why, similar to a regular weapon, regular weapons, if you take care of it, if you polish it, if you properly maintain it, it will look the same 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years from now than it did when it was first made, right? You can make, even in use, you can make them look just as good. Magic kind of does the same thing, and the more you put into it, right? Like, let's say you have a staff. Even if you use the staff and get those tiny little bends and nicks in it, the magic does want to help it. And as you take care of it, certain ones may correct themselves, certain things may slowly go over time. But if you were to like actually nick the corner off of a staff, that's not going to magically grow back, right? But small imperfections might smooth themselves out a little bit. Grains might, reorient just a little bit. There is going to be some natural tendency for magic to repair, but it's not going to be to the extent that it will be fine on its own if you use it and never mess with it, right? It will deteriorate, and eventually you'll have to do something about that. But the deterioration is drastically much lower than any other natural weapons decay. And again, this is mostly just high point. Don't take this for much more than what I do in high point, because D&D original like old AD&D did have
Give me 1 second.
degradation options and things of that sort, but they were varied and didn't I think they were mostly just supplemental rules. They were optional rules. They didn't have they weren't really expected. So this is more stuff that I like to do when it comes to weapon maintenance and weapon degradation. I do think that, yeah, magic does keep things better, but they don't keep things perfect, right? Um, I mean, think of it kind of like a weapon in a sheath, right? You could have two people carrying a weapon, one with a sheath and one without a sheath, and they'll both decay over time. It's just one will decay drastically slower than the other because it will have the insulation, right? Um, Kage, I was just saying, like, imagine you have like two warriors, right? Like two samurai. One carries a katana in their sheath, and one just carries it just slipped into their belt, right? Just open.
Okay.
In the sense of over time, both will deteriorate. Like, no matter what, the elements will get to it. But the one in the sheath will deteriorate drastically a lot slower in the outside elements because it has that level of protection, has some sort of insulation from direct
Sure.
contact. But it's still going to feel the moisture. It's still going to, have some deterioration. So you could think of magic items like that, right? It's not a perfect barrier, but it is insulation from the average elemental. I mean, elemental as in like the average degradation from elements, from
So
the
it's
general aspect.
basically a McDonald's cheeseburger.
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty much.
that's good to know. You can still take a bite out of it, but leaving it to its own devices, it'll pretty much look the same for a while.
Exactly. And I think that just, it plays to a lot of different aspects to how magic is used. It's just, again, one of those things I like to try to keep consistent about, what is that concept? Because how does magic,
Absolutely.
maintain an item, right? certain items do lose magic over time and other items don't. So how do you play into all of that, and how do you make sense of how all that happens?
Agreed.
Oh, yep, and that's a good point, Halepa. Why sentient weapons? There's a good reason for why sentient weapons should have the spell repair or mend, memorized, because they can fix themselves up.
Right.
So yeah, all good stuff. So yeah, good question. That was a nice little tangent to end it on.
Cool. Cool.
I haven't talked about magical weapons in High Point in a while. Yeah, magic is
I
crazy,
thought it might
but
be its own little thing.
it kind of is. Well, and then once you get into spell engineering, spell crafting, and the ability to like actually ingest and enchant your own
Yep.
spells, that's when you can get kind of crazy. Because if you get a good enough weapon with a good enough, ability to have spells inside, and you get a high enough spellcaster, I mean, then you have things like you could have a magical weapon that has a magical ability, but then as a supplemental ability, you could also put things like mend and repair in there with the spell permanency. So you could basically have a weapon that just automatically repairs itself. So that one in your example would look exactly as it should have day 1 to day 1,000, no matter where it is. That one, like honestly, like that's your Excalibur sword, right? That's like the sword that you come across and it should look completely worn and aged, but it looks perfect. And that's what that level of like spell crafting would do, is you'd be able to really input that into the sword itself and let it keep itself alive.
Okay.
Ooh, level 14 for Cosmic's Party. Good luck. Hopefully you can start getting some really nice challenging battles. But
Is that like you talk about who got this weapon?
no, they're just saying that they're looking forward to tomorrow's session because they just recently leveled up to 14.
Oh, got you.
14's like that's like when the game really starts. Like that's that's when everything
Yes.
gets serious. You finally got all your stuff.
Super
and,
serious.
actually get to use it. But anyway, that was great. Again, Cosmic, thank you so much for submitting that. I love the permafrosted stacks. I think that's my favorite thing, my favorite takeaway from this. But I really do want to sit and sleep on this idea of a multi-attune slot item. I think I'm really going to be able to at least take that and roll with it with some of my own ideas. So thank you for bringing that up as a now viable option and that I may have to
Freaking Lily.
consider utilizing. But otherwise, I think that might be us for tonight. We almost got to 3 hours. That was a pretty good review.
That was very hefty, especially for such a straightforward item. It had more to it than we thought, but
right.
still, yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Serotonin. I'm glad that you were here to enjoy it. Let us know what you all thought about it. Of course, leave any comments if you're seeing this in the future. Let's see, what do we got going on? We do have stream. Let me double check. I have so many things coming up. I don't. My schedule is gonna be crazy coming up. Okay. I'm good on Friday, so stream on Friday. I don't know. I think we might try to do. You mentioned that there's some topics that you've been wanting to dive in on, so we might go old school.
Yeah.
And do a D&D discussions, old school stream. But otherwise,
Okay,
yeah, stay tuned for that. Community stream is back on. So as you can see, we're 10K out of 15K raised for the community stream. So don't forget, we will do that. We might be announcing a new type of community stream option. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, is this before or
whoops,
after?
There we go. Make sure you before or after what?
Before or after stream actually happens. So you're talking about like I want a new
it'll be a new topic that the community will be able to vote on for what we do during
for this upcoming one.
Yes. I'm trying to get I'm trying to work it out so before we could do it, so they have that option ready for March. So stay tuned in the Discord for that, because there may be some new voting options for you for the community stream. If I can get everything done the way that I will be comfortable with. So stay tuned for that. And you have a question in chat. Right before we leave, final question in chat.
All right. What kind of effects do feat names like language barrier and false start make you think of? What kind of effects do names like language barrier and false start? I feel like that would depend a lot on, like, first of all, the names of these sound like feats. They don't sound like weapons or anything like that. Maybe it could be a spell.
I mean, he
Um,
said he does say that they're feats, but what kind of effect do you think they do as a feat?
oh, feat names. Okay. Uh, so I like the idea of language barrier being something that when two people are like having a conversation, if I cast this on one or both of them, you can now not understand that person no matter what language they speak.
Mm,
Like no matter what language they
interesting.
speak,
So
there's
you would say that you would want that one to inflict the ability to have a language barrier, not overcome it, but
yes.
inflict one. Okay.
Yes, because there's already comprehend languages. You already have something to be able to understand somebody, but like there's nothing that basically stops you from understanding them.
Right.
Or like,
It almost sounds like instead of comprehending languages, to me, it kind of almost sounds like from your example, maybe like a self-initiated thieves camp. Like this allows you to have a conversation with somebody that nobody else can understand.
oh, interesting, interesting. So
That's
even people
almost
that are
kind of
like
what
trying
it
to read
sounds
your
like.
lips, or I like that idea too. I definitely like that. I think both of those are very useful and viable abilities. Um,
And what about false start? What do you
false
think? What do you
start,
think the feat false
false start's a
start
little bit
does?
harder. Like, I'm thinking it's gonna have something to do with initiative.
Ha! That's a good.
Um,
Yeah, that's where my mind would have gone with it.
but like, see, so I think that again, as just a regular feat, I don't know like how powerful this should be, but like maybe once per day, you get to take action first as though you had a surprise round in combat, as long as you are not surprised. So basically, what that means is like
Mm,
I get to go before everybody else, no matter what I rolled in initiative. No matter what I rolled in initiative, I get to have one round before anybody else gets to start. I can do that like once a day or something like that. That's kind of the idea. It's like you're in football and they're supposed to snap the ball, and once you snap the ball, combat begins, right? I went on a false start before combat even started, so I get to go before everybody else. I get to take one turn before
okay, that
everybody
makes perfect
else.
sense. I think that yeah, that's actually a pretty probably a really good idea. Well, those are Cosmic's next submission, so we will find out. They did have a question before that a little while ago, though. I know that you're still working on a couple of the submissions and getting those done over, but based on how many we have in queue, do you know about how long it might be until Cosmic's next one? I think Cosmic wants to know when's the
So
next time they have to show up on stream.
wild. Well, come more often and you'll be able to see all of them. I will say, let's see, one, two, three, four. I think there are four people in front of you right now, Cosmic. So about a month, I would say. Maybe a month and
All
a
right, and
week.
that's if we don't get into the habit of now that you're more, if you're going to be remote more often, we could
Right.
try and start
Doubling up
doing
some.
two, maybe even starting a little bit earlier on Mondays. If we really want to try to push it to a 5 p.m. start time, we might
Sure.
easily be able to start adding in an extra one.
I can do that every once in a while. I think that's not a bad idea.
All right, so yeah, so
I will
we'll say
say,
4 weeks for right now, maybe sooner.
we have the lowest number of submissions we've had in a while, but it's still in the double digits technically. I
Good.
think we have there's a couple that aren't on here. I want to say 16 to 18 submissions left, not
Oh, that's
including
still
whatever
pretty
Cosmic
good.
is talking about.
I
Yes.
mean, and that's still a couple
So
months.
for a
So
while we
we're
had like 20, almost 30.
I mean, that's true. We had we had
Right.
quite a bit stacked
We
up,
were
but we're doing all
stacked.
right. We're still doing all right.
True
It's
that.
fine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Cosmic Submission. Again, thank you, Cosmic, for giving it to us. Hopefully, we'll get to yours in about 4 weeks if we don't get any, new submitters. Maybe even sooner if we start to do more reviews in the same, throughout the week, or at least 2 reviews on a Monday. We'll find that out. But yeah, stay tuned. We will be back on Friday with more D&D content. Hopefully, we'll be doing a dedicated D&D discussions. So we will be focusing.
So you are here Friday, or you're not here Friday?
No, we are here Friday. So.
Okay.
We are going to be live on Friday, so we'll probably be going back to D&D discussions. So I know that there's a couple topics that you and I have been wanting to discuss. So throughout the week, we'll get together and make a whole list of that. But other than that, I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great week ahead of you. We'll be back on Friday. I'm really looking forward to next month's community stream, especially if y'all vote for the new topic that will be
the new one.
So again, stay tuned in Discord to find out what that's going to be. But until the next time, have a great rest of your night. Cheers. Hydrate.
I swear.